TikTok time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here. D Wood with me now. I'm outnumbered by Turks again.
We are here to conquer.
The only two good Turks on the planet. And we got them both, ladies and gentlemen. We got them both. Oh, these are awesome times. Awesome times. Speaking of awesome times.
You know what's funny?
What?
So today in church, during the liturgy,
Man, you ain't go to church.
and afterwards, I'm speaking to my priest, and then he comes over to me and he says, he chuckles for a second and says, it's very interesting because I'm having a little bit of joy with something here. He said, as I was doing the liturgy, I looked over to you and you were saying, and you were singing a certain part in Greek. And I thought to myself, here I made a Turkish man sing in Greek. And I'm just getting a little bit of joy out of that, just so you know, he says.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. I like the way that guy thinks. Go ahead, Tatun.
I would like to point out, AP had the opportunity to become Antiochian Orthodox Christian, but he became Greek Orthodox, or he's becoming Greek Orthodox.
Yes.
That's not only he walked out of Islam, now he's walking out of the country, and then he's going to the enemies.
Alhamdulillah.
That's like double betrayal. It's not good.
Pretty bad, pretty bad, pretty bad. Pretty rough, pretty rough.
Pretty rough.
We have this comment here. Clean cut. Talking about me, I presume. Because I'm all trimmed up. Yeah, it was kind of...
What's with you? You look like a baby.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I had a funeral to go... Well, that's not the funny part. But so we're going to drive to a funeral. We're going to drive on Friday and then funeral on Saturday. So yesterday. And it was evening. It was Thursday evening. So it was my last chance to get a haircut. So I went to the place I normally go to, and their air conditioner had gone out. So they had to close. And so, but it was already like 6:00 p.m. and I had to just look for any place that was still open because barbershops close usually like 5 or something like that. So I looked for any place that was open, and it was this Asian woman, and I went in there and I couldn't understand anything she was saying. I just kept saying, "Okay, yeah, fine." And next thing I know, she was cutting my beard. Right? So I agreed for her to cut my. Didn't cut it completely off, but all of a sudden I'm just going, yeah, whatever. Yeah, anything's fine. I don't really care. Ow! And I was like, oh, oops. All right. So yeah, that was.
I'm glad all she did was to cut the beard.
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess things could have been worse. All right. So 2025, man, 2025. We predicted that this was going to be a pretty rough year for dawah, but who could have foreseen the hijab scandal? And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I just saw a little while ago. The dawah guys from Speaker's Corner having a pretty rough time now because a bunch of these guys are on this list, the dawah Diddy list, or the Islamic Epstein list, whatever anyone wants to call it, where they're all conspiring with hijab to lie and so on, and they're just being called out for it right there at Speaker's Corner. They're there trying to talk, and people walking up to them and going, hey, what are you doing, man? Anyway, so that's really awesome it sucks that it happened, but it's awesome that it's being exposed. That is good that it's being exposed. It could have not been exposed and just gone on forever and so on. So it's good that it's being exposed. But then we've got Yasir Qadhi out of nowhere, man, declares war on the Hadith and Islamic history and Islamic methodology and so on. Awesome times. What are you about to say?
I think he's good for something, I guess. You know, it's kind of funny. Earlier I was calling it the curse of Yasir Qadhi, but it's so weird that he repeatedly, as the Islamic scholar who is supposed to be, representing Islam in a good way and defending Islam and all that, he repeatedly brings out something new that causes another new scandal to Islam, and degrades and refutes an aspect of Islam, and we're just loving it here. And Muslims get all squirmy about it and start fighting about it. It almost sounds like I don't want to say it. But it almost looks like Yasir Qadhi is doing this deliberately because he's being paid by certain anti-Islamic circles to
Ooh.
disrupt Islam from within.
Would we be insane if we thought that perhaps he's being paid by Mossad to wreck Islam from within?
I wouldn't be surprised, and I would be very happy to hear that.
It's either that or he's further into the narcissist spectrum than I thought. He obviously had narcissistic tendencies, but he wasn't like Muhammad Hijab or Ali Dawah level like narcissist. But he could be he definitely had some narcissistic tendencies and so on. Definitely wants attention, but he could be worse than I thought. And some people they crave attention so much that they'll do almost anything for drama. And so there might just be something in his brain going, hey, now's a good time to blast the hadiths. Just blast them, man. Just blast them. As his brain desperately crying for attention.
Alhamdulillah.
Could be. Or he could just be getting paid by Mossad. It's one or the other. It's one of those. All right, so AP. Now, AP, we were right before we started. I asked you how familiar you are with what's been going on, and you said not very. You haven't been following this.
I haven't followed it at all. I keep seeing Muslims condemning each other and fighting about it or something, calling out Yasir Qadhi. I see you guys jumping on it. I haven't really followed. There was too much going on with stuff in Syria and all that, so I haven't really looked into much of what's going on. So I have basically no idea what Yasir Qadhi did this time and what is happening right now.
Well, we'll get you updated, and we'll get everyone else updated, and it'll be pretty fun. But long story short, several years ago, Yasir Qadhi had exposed the holes in the narrative and destroyed a lot of people's confidence in the Quran. Well, now we have Holes in the Narrative 2.0, where he destroys their confidence in the Hadith, and it's the same thing. Yasir Qadhi, for one brief moment in his life, tells the truth. And the moment he opens his mouth and tells the truth, all the dawah guys have to declare war on him because they're worried about him destroying the faith of Muslims. So that happened with the Holes in the Narrative. For just a little bit of his entire career, he was finally honest because he was forced into that position. He was forced into that position where everyone's paying attention to him, and he's being called for emails that Fareed leaked and so on. And so he couldn't just blurt out the standard narrative anymore. And so he had to admit that Muslims have been misled by these claims. They bought into a bunch of dawah lies. He did not want to acknowledge the truth, but he let way too much out. The Muslim community lost their minds, and so the dawah guys had to attack him. Shame on him, and then he had to try and save face and so on by attacking us. Little side note, everyone. Watch every time one of these guys embarrasses himself. Every single time one of these guys just completely embarrasses himself and gets called out by the rest of the ummah, every single time they will instantly either start blasting away at Islamophobes or start blasting away at Jews in Israel or start blasting away at like Hindutva or something like that. 100% of the time. Why? Because if the ummah's attacking you, you have to demonstrate your value to the ummah once again and say, look how important I am. You shouldn't be attacking me. I'm so important. Just watch the fallout and watch Yasir Qadhi declare war on us, war on Israel, all this stuff. But anyway, that's what happened several years ago. And now we've got 2.0 where he blasts the hadith and says, basically, Islamic hadith methodology is garbage to academics, and no serious academic would take this seriously. And so he acknowledges he has to live a double life. He lives one life where he's interacting with scholars, not scholars in the Muslim sense, like academic scholars and like non-Muslim scholars and so on. He lives one life there, and then when he's talking to Muslims, he has to turn all that off and just operate by faith. And so the academic Yasir Qadhi knows the hadith cannot stand up to scrutiny, but the devout Muslim Yasir Qadhi, he just accepts it all and and quotes the Hadith as if this is actually the words of Muhammad. Awesome stuff. So people are flipping out on him. Same thing has happened last time. They're blasting away at him. These are fun times. These are fun times.
You said academic Yasir Qadhi, and I thought in my head I thought epidemic Yasir Qadhi for whenever he causes some chaos again here.
Yep. And well, how much Yasir Qadhi, let me just say, if you never do anything to help us ever again, just know that you've done plenty. You've done plenty. You have served your purpose. And if you are, in fact, being paid by Mossad for all that, I hope you're paid well, compensated well. If not, let me know. I will make sure you get some money out of this because you deserve it, buddy. You deserve it.
I will talk to my guys too.
We'll do a GoFundMe for Yasir Qadhi. Hey, Yasir Qadhi, what's your Patreon, man? We want to tell everyone to chip in so you can bring it. We want to fund the next disaster. Oh, man. Hey, so Hatun, I want to play just a short summary of the holes in the narrative. I just put some clips together from the holes in the narrative interview, the original one where he's talking about the Quran. But why don't you tell everyone what led up to that? Play a little clip and we'll go through, we'll explain what happened there because it kind of sets the stage for this next Islam demolishing blunder.
So back in days when Yasir Qadhi was this amazing scholar where everyone looked up to him, learned from him. In the discussions, one of the students of the knowledge called Farid figured out, well, Yasir Qadhi is questioning or not fully clear regarding what is ahruf, what is qiraat, how they link together, perfect preservation of the Quran dot by dot, all those kind of things. So they set him up because for decades they've been telling the world that Quran has been perfectly preserved, dot by dot, letter by letter, sound by sound, word by word. And that got exposed back in 2016. And Muslims are trying to figure out how to fix it. So to fix it, they set up Yasir Qadhi, and kind of main player is Mohammed Hijab. This amazing guy who thinks like, yeah, I'm gonna pay hotel fee and then take the woman in a hotel for sex.
Tactical genius.
Yeah, amazing. And wearing mask, all those kind of things. So he, without mask, he's sat in front of Yasir Qadhi, on the camera, interviewed Yasir Qadhi, asked the questions which Farid told him to ask. And in that interview, Yasir Qadhi simply expressed, yeah, he's got some problems. So there are holes in the standard narrative when it comes to the preservation of the Quran linked with ahruf and qiraat. And that kind of...
So just one quick for anyone who's new, the ahruf are supposedly these different ways that the Quran was revealed. Muslims don't know what it means. Some say dialects that doesn't work and so on. The different qiraat are sort of different versions of the Quran. And then between the ahruf and the qiraat, you have Uthman burning all the Qurans and supposedly issuing an official version and so on. And so the problem is if you want to explain the differences in the different versions of the Quran, the different qiraat, if you want to explain the differences, you want to say they all go back to Muhammad somehow. Muhammad revealed them in all these ways. And so they try to kind of explain them in terms of the different ahruf. But then the question arises, wait a minute, Uthman burned all the different manuscripts and issued an authoritative one. So how do you still have how did all the differences make it through that process and so on? And what's the connection? And yeah, so I just want to make sure people understand the words you're using. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So overall, Yasir Qadhi couldn't tell to Mohammed Hijab that Quran has been perfectly preserved dot by dot, letter by letter, sound by sound, word by word. He told him to come to his class, all those kind of things. In that interview, he was asked, if I give you empty paper, what would you write? And then he said, well, I don't know. I would little bit of that, all those kind of things. Very much messed up interview. Anyway, interview went up. First thing came from Mohammed Hijab. He's very clever. He took that last part of half an hour of the interview from his video, and then that got
He
everyone
abrogated. He abrogated that part of the interview.
he abrogated that, and then everyone was like, "Why this video is short? This video is long." And then people figured out what was conversation all about. They start giving copyrights. They start kind of bullying Yasir Qadhi into apologizing, all those kind of things. And then Yasir Qadhi fall into it. He took down video. He took down the comments, all those kind of things. Anyway, at the end, that was 5 years ago. He pointed out that standard narrative has holes in it, and we don't know how to fix it.
What he said was the standard narrative has holes in it.
Yeah,
That's what I'm going to say. Yeah, so let's go ahead and watch a little clip. By the way, little side note. It's very interesting. When I described in videos and in live streams and so on what happened, I explained that Yasir Qadhi was living a double life, right? When he was talking at a popular level to Muslims in general, he would say that the Quran has been perfectly preserved, dot by dot, letter for letter, since the time of Uthman, and that there has not been one letter's difference between any two Qurans in the entire since then. And that's completely false. And guess what? He knows it's false, but that's what he would say at the popular level when he's talking to people that he calls students of knowledge. So these are people who are going to actually learn reality about the history of the Quran. There he would say, of course, we have different Qurans, we have different Qira'at, and they have different letters and different words and so on with different meanings. Of course, we have that. So he was saying completely different things, and so he's living a double life. He would acknowledge this stuff while he's talking to scholars, and then he would say something completely different if he's talking at the popular level. And this is what led Fareed. He's like behind the scenes, and he's saying, wait, the stuff he's saying here to Muslims who are students of knowledge is very different. And so he's recognizing the issues, and he wants to bring this out. And so what we saw in the Holes in the Narrative interview were these two worlds colliding, where if he says, of course, the Quran has been perfectly preserved, dot for dot, letter for letter, he's going to be blasted by the people who follow him as a scholar. They're going to say, we know you're lying because you tell us something completely different behind the scenes, so we know you're lying. He can either say the Quran's been perfectly preserved, in which case he'll be exposed as a liar to all the students of knowledge who follow him, and he'd be laughed out of the academic world if he tries to step foot in there. Or he can say, of course, there are differences in the Quran. This has all been a lie. This myth of perfect preservation, it's all a lie, in which case the entire Ummah declares war on him. So he was in trouble either way when basically the two lives he was living are on the same stage, and he has to kind of pick, and he doesn't want to say anything because he knows whatever he says, he's in trouble. So it's funny that I described it as like these two lives, and now you've got this recent interview, and he's like, yeah. So when I'm in, talking to academics, I think one way, and then when I'm talking to Muslims, I have to think a completely different way, use completely different. He's acknowledging it. He's acknowledging what was obvious all along. But let's go ahead and check out a couple short clips from that Holes in the Narrative interview.
Let's do it.
It'll be based.
Every single student of knowledge knows, who studies Ulum al-Quran, that the most difficult topics are ahruf and qira'at, and the concept of ahruf and the reality of ahruf, and the relationship of the Uthmanic Mus'haf with the ahruf, and the preservation of the ahruf. Is it 1? Is it 3? Is it 7? And the relationship of the qira'at to the ahruf. This is a topic that when you're the beginning student of knowledge, you're like, what is all of this going on here? When you go a little bit more, you learn to simply memorize what your teachers say and regurgitate it out, and you don't fully comprehend. When you do a deep dive is when things get very, very awkward and difficult. And this is
just wanted to point out that first little bit, guys. When you're at the very beginning of becoming a student of knowledge, you're actually starting to study the text of the Quran and things like that. You go, what is all this stuff? Why? Because you've been told all your life, no variance, perfect preservation, dot for dot. And then as soon as you start studying, they start talking about different Qurans and or the Ahruf and Uthman burning all the Qurans to cover up the differences and so on. And you're like, what is this? What is this stuff? So that's what happens at the beginning. Then you start learning from your scholars and they tell you, oh, this is easy. We have all this stuff figured out. Yeah. And you memorize this stuff. And then, of course, if you do a deep dive, you study even more, you start realizing, these explanations don't make any sense at all. They don't actually work.
This isn't new. This is from the time of the Sahaba. This is not a joke, brothers and sisters. The issue of ahruf and qira'at caused confusion to somebody whom the Prophet ﷺ said, if you want to listen to the Quran directly, listen to Ubay. Ubay is not some even average Sahabi. He is the Qari of the Quran. He is the master. He is who he is. And he goes, فَدَخَلْ فِي نَفْسِي شَكْ. What is all of this stuff? Again, this is you're asking some very honest question. This is the first time I'm saying these things. Many people are aware who listen to my lecture.
First time I'm saying these things. What he means first time he's saying this stuff in public. But think about this. This guy's been speaking publicly for years, and as first time I'm saying, first time what? You're pointing out that this. Well, he's about to point out that the standard narrative has holes in it. But he's one of the guys who spread the lie, and matter of fact, his dad was spreading the lie.
That I've mentioned the crises that happened to me at Yale. This was the issue. That the issue of ahruf and preservation and qira'at and relationships between them, these are very, very difficult issues. And the most advanced of our scholars, they're not quite fully certain how to solve all of the unanswered questions in there. Here's the point. These issues should only be...
Imagine my two favorite guys on the same screen. Gosh.
Discussed amongst people who know what the qira'at are and who understand some of these questions that are being raised.
So is what you're saying the shak that came, or not the shak, but the crisis that you had was in relation to this question of the relationship between the ahruf and the qira'at, basically?
No. The crisis I had wasn't that. The crisis I had was, that was what generated. But what was the crisis? The crisis was very simple. Traditional understandings of ahruf and qira'at cannot answer some of these pressing questions that are now being poked by our people by our academics, by their academics outside of the faith tradition. You see, in a Muslim environment, there's always some respect that we have for the Quran. We should. In a Muslim environment, we'll press a little bit and then we'll say, okay, khalas, sami'na wa ata'na. And that's great, alhamdulillah. When you go to academia, they don't have that red line. And they're going to just, the famous story of the emperor with no clothes. They're going to just point out, no, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's...
My goodness, guys. I forgot about how brutal this was.
What he says there is actually very, very, very interesting.
It's extremely interesting and honest. And these are like the few minutes of his life where he was actually forced to be honest. And did you catch that? It's, Muslims will push a little bit, but, we're not going to push too hard. And if someone gives an answer in defense of the Quran, we might, try to see if it's acceptable or not, but we're not going to push too hard because we don't want to be attacking the Quran. He says the non-Muslim academics, they don't have that red line. So they'll say, hey, the emperor's got no clothes. What he applied the story of the emperor's new clothes, where he's actually walking around naked. And it's like a young boy who's like, what are you doing? He's got no clothes on. But everyone's pretending like they can see his clothes and stuff because they're told you'll be stupid if you don't. He's saying that's like the scholars, the non-Muslim scholars are like the boy saying, dude, you guys are naked, man. This is all just complete nonsense. And the reason it's important, watch what he says here.
Not true, and this and that.
Wait, let me back that up a little bit because that's powerful stuff. And guys, the reason I wanted to play this is very relevant for understanding what he means in the new clip about the hadith.
And we'll say, okay, khalas, sami'na wa ata'na. And that's great, alhamdulillah. When you go to academia, they don't have that red line. And they're going to just, the famous story of the emperor with no clothes. They're going to just point out, no, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's not true, and this and that. And they'll bring issues, which I'm not going to mention explicitly, that are true because they're in your own books. They're not inventing anything new. They'll bring...
You catch that, AP?
Which I'm not mentioning explicitly.
He says, the scholars will bring up these issues. So you give your memorized response that supposedly defends the Quran and so on. They call you out for basically not having any clothes. So you're actually naked. And he says, and you know they're right because they're quoting your sources. What's that mean? He's saying it's the academics who are correct, even according to our sources. They're correct. They're pointing it out. And it's the Muslims who are just regurgitating stuff they memorized, and it cannot stand up to scrutiny. It can't stand up to scrutiny. So let me back that up. Just want everyone to make sure they understand this, because this is, again, this is going to tie into what he's saying about the Hadith.
When you go to academia, they don't have that red line. And they're going to just, you know, the famous story of the emperor with no clothes. They're going to just point out, no, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's not true, and this and that. And they'll bring issues, which I'm not going to mention explicitly, that you know are true because they're in your own books. They're not inventing anything new.
You know,
they'll bring you riwayat, and they'll bring you athar, and then you add to that very well-known issues of, I don't even want to be explicit. And then you bring on top of that makhtutat, and then. And it's very clear to you and to every single very advanced student and specialist that the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what
the standard narrative. So we kind of used that when it came out. We kind of used that to say the standard narrative about the perfect preservation of the Quran and so on. No, and you know, he is attacking the standard narrative, but he's not. He's attacking. What he's saying is much worse. He's saying the standard narrative about how Muslim scholars and students of knowledge can try to explain all these differences while still believing in this amazing preservation of the Quran. The narratives we come up with about the ahruf and the Uthmanic recension and the kirat and all this, and how we tie all this, how we work all this together, that's the narrative that has holes in it. We can't, it doesn't work. Our explanations do not work. And we're finding out from non-Muslim academics who are blasting at our explanations, this is his crisis of faith. We can't actually explain this. We pretend like we can, but these guys are coming out saying, come on, the emperor's got no clothes. He's just naked, admit it. And he's saying, you know, they're right because they're quoting our sources to us to show us that our explanations do not work in defense of the Quran. Interesting stuff. Back that up just a couple seconds, and then there's just a little bit left.
To you and to every single very advanced student and specialist. And
more.
Then you add to that very well-known issues of, I don't even want to be explicit. And then you bring on top of that makhtutat, and then. And it's very clear to you and to every single very advanced student and specialist that the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say. The standard narrative does not answer some very pressing questions. These are now well known within the Western Academy, that they're bringing forth issues. Their level of now knowledge is leaps and bounds above what it used to be, 100 years ago. What is happening in the last few years is not me anymore. It's the Western academics. These problems are now becoming mainstream. And by and large, our ulama in the Eastern world are not aware, by and large, of what's going on in the Western side of things. And they're not answering those questions in a manner that it needs to be answered.
Catch all that, AP?
And we're proud of that.
And we're proud of that. So the ummah is kept in the dark of all this, right? The average Muslim is kept completely in the dark about all this stuff. You become a student of knowledge, you start finding out some things. You say, what is all this? Then what happens? You start memorizing whatever scholar you're under, whatever he says, and you just repeat that. Oh, this is how we explain all these differences and all these tens of thousands of differences in versions of the Quran and so on. And if you do a deep dive, meaning if you're actually seriously looking into this and wrestling with some non-Muslim academic material, you realize we got some serious problems here. Serious problems. Now, guys, everyone who's watching, especially you Muslims, if what you heard the entire time you were growing up, that the Quran's been perfectly preserved right down to the letter, would you expect any of this? Does any of this make sense? Like if every Quran manuscript in the history of the world lined up perfectly, would there be any issue with the preservation of the Quran? Would there be any issue with the different qira'at? There'd be no issues. Uthman wouldn't have had to burn all the manuscripts. So this basically, you had two separate worlds. Now I've already talked about Yasir Qadhi's two separate worlds and stuff like that. But basically you had the ummah, which was kept in a state of ignorance about all this because they knew it would shake their faith and make them leave Islam. And then you had what's going on among the scholars who know about this stuff. And all of a sudden, this live stream with Sheikh Yasir Qadhi, Muhammad Hijab, with help from Fareed, force this out into the open. The Muslims had never heard this stuff before. Now all of a sudden they heard about different Qurans, and they heard that their scholars cannot answer this stuff. Fun times, fun times. All right, you guys have any thoughts on any of this?
No.
Anything to add to any of this, Hatun?
There are holes in the narrative.
Holes in the narrative. That was 1.0. But there's about to be holes in the narrative 2.0, ladies and gentlemen. Holes in the narrative 2.0.
So there's more to this discussion. There's much more to this, but it is all a very sensitive matter. And honestly, I don't want to speak about this very publicly here. I don't want to explicitly mention all of this, but you can find all of this in my course. But this is all very too sensitive to speak about openly and directly here. But when you subscribe to my channel, you can find all of this in a private course. I will not be explicit. I will not mention what the problems are, but there are too many problems here.
That is all entirely correct. And so Yasir Qadhi had to deal with the fallout from that little interview for years. And then just when he thinks he's starting to recover and he's going to build Epic City, he wrecks the Hadith like he wrecked the Quran. And everyone's in panic mode. Let's take these first couple of super chats, and then we're going to jump into Holes in the Narrative 2.0. Not going to be pretty. Not going to be pretty. What is this, David? Not even Muhammad was late to catch up with the men of Al-Zut. You don't know. Sources are unreliable, according to Sheikh Yasir Qadhi. Okay, we have no idea what happened because the sources are garbage. David, your haircut is zootiful. Yes, that's what I was aiming for. Hello, D. Wood. I have a serious question for you. Where is the best place to get pizza in New York City?
This is a very relevant.
Yeah, go to any of the Ray's, famous Ray's, any of those. I lived in the Bronx. I had my favorite pizza place in the Bronx. You're talking about New York City. You're probably talking about Manhattan. So yeah, go to any of the famous Ray's original. They're all good, man. New York pizza's all good. I wish I didn't have epilepsy so I could go fight with the drugs. David looks great. Wait, what? I wish I didn't have epilepsy so I could go fight with the drugs. David looks great. Wait. Go fight with the drugs? I have to say, Hatun has an amazing smile. Yes, everyone likes Hatun's smile. Hatun gets really happy, especially when Sheikh Yasir Qadhi says anything when he's honest. It's got to be something where there's someone around him who's like sabotaging him and they just occasionally just go like jab him with some truth serum.
I think this on the Hadith one is not intentional. You can see like those two young individuals are just trying to kind of help him to sell his book, all those kind of things. It just like accidentally happened.
Something like that. Something like that. Dave, you think Joseph Smith has an Al-Zut story? We're actually gonna be comparing the sex lives of Joseph Smith and Muhammad in future live stream. All jokes aside, I really think Muhammad Hijab has done far more to expose the falsehood of Islam than Yasir Qadhi. Huh? What do you guys think about that? Who's done more damage to dawah, Muhammad Hijab or Yasir Qadhi? It's very different kinds of damage, but what do you guys think?
Exactly what I just wanted to say. That it's a different kind of damage. So it's hard to compare because the two have a very different kind of doing damage to Islam, to dawah, and they're both doing it very well, honestly. So we could argue, somebody could argue reasonably that both of them are actually paid by Mossad to do this, to cause as much damage as they can to dawah.
Money well spent.
And and I think that they are both doing a fantastic job. But I have to say, so on an academic level, or on a deep dive, doctrinal, theological level, I would say Yasir Qadhi has done more damage. On another level, on a more popular level, Muhammad Hijab has done significantly more damage. So they both are very good players in their own field,
I think when they team up, that was very, very helpful. It was very helpful to Muslims to become ex-Muslim. Once they decided they're not going to team up again, concerns kind of changed. So now Yasir Qadhi's interview has been over a week now. You've got those kind of giant names of Islam are planning how to deplatform him. Like they're even praying, like Muslims are even praying for Allah to destroy Yasir Qadhi's keyboard. They are talking about even Pan, they are talking about like how to not give him any platform. Versus, because it's theologically affects people. Versus Mohammed Hijab. How many tweets did we read from Adnan Rashid condemning what Mohammed Hijab did to Aisha? Or anything Mohammed Hijab did? No. How many video Farid put up regarding how Mohammed Hijab tried to put headed like this hotel wife things? Nothing. So what Mohammed Hijab is doing is somehow making scholars, that was even Aisha's concerns, making scholars to kind of discredit, like back up Mohammed Hijab and then keep quiet, shut up, because he's this muscular face of Islam. Versus Yasir Qadhi just moves his lips, makes theological statements. Everyone out there is like, okay, how do we hunt this guy down? So it's very now, because their audience are very, very different. In that sense, their effects is very different. But I would say from the evangelism perspective, what Yasir Qadhi is doing is more helpful to me as a Christian when I ask Muslims questions, because I can simply say, this is your giant, he has books, he's from Medina, this is his credentials, and this is what he says to me. Versus, oh yeah, Mohammed Hijab this the woman, or Mohammed Hijab is doing those. Because what Mohammed Hijab is doing, his audience are these young guys who are struggling with identity. He's speaking to them, and he's able to kind of simply bully them into things.
Alhamdulillah.
Hey, AP.
What?
Are you like tapping your leg vigorously or something like this? There's like a thumping sound.
No, it's not from me. I hear
Not
that
from you?
sounding all the time.
Huh?
I was wondering if it's from Hatun, because I hear it all the time. Just now.
Is there any thumping? Is there any thumping going on in either one of your places? Kids running around or anything? No?
No.
No, I'm just wondering. I'm wondering if it's a mic situation or if it's actually some sort of noise.
I think it happens when Hatun speaks.
Oh yeah.
My voice is powerful. Is it happening now?
Nope, not right now. But it was happening while you were speaking. Anyway, we'll monitor the situation. Yeah. As far as
I thought you were drumming or something, man. I don't know.
as far as well, I mean, I don't even know it, because I mean, if it's not actual noise coming from one of you guys, it could be me as well. If it's just some weird mic thing or something. Anyway, yeah, when I think about who's doing more damage, yeah, it's different kinds of damage. Yasir Qadhi is more like precision strike. If you were talking about like a war or something like that, Yasir Qadhi would be like precision strikes completely destroying the two main cities or something like that. Whereas Hijab's just like, just wrecking things in general, but not like these precision strikes. And so, yeah, what Hijab did was he basically turned dawah from something that's geared towards convincing non-Muslims that Islam is true towards almost exclusively trying to keep Muslims from leaving Islam. But what's impressive to Muslims is very different from what's impressive to non-Muslims quite frequently. And so what's impressive to his followers is just lots of chest thumping. Oh, me so strong, me so strong. But you look like an idiot to non-Muslims. Right? What is this, man? What is this, right? Whereas Yasir Qadhi's not doing that, but he's precision striking right where it hurts most. The preservation of the Quran, he completely wrecked that stuff. And now even the basic history of Muhammad is all in jeopardy thanks to this guy. So awesome, fun times. Hey, David, nice haircut, but was it cut halal? I don't know. I didn't understand what she was saying. She could have said this is 100% halal certified. I would not know. You guys hear that? What is that?
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's Hatun now, because now that she was moving and laughing, it happened. So.
Yeah, but she wasn't saying anything.
but she was laughing. So
I'm gonna. I will eventually mute
When
someone's.
I don't. When I laugh, I didn't make sound.
Yeah, I know there was no sound, but we still hear the. I don't know. That's weird. I might cut each one of our mics while the other two are talking, and then we'll see if we hear it, and then we'll figure out if it's my end, your end, AP, or Hatun.
inshallah.
Let's see. Hatun, you look lovely as always. Oh, hi, David and AP. Yes, hi. How you doing?
Hello.
What's up? Y'all should make a Sailor Momo episode, and wherever he gets a revelation, he goes through a magical girl transformation, after which he's in Aisha's nighty. Intro is the song AP played the other day. That's a good
You
idea.
wouldn't understand it because you're not familiar with Sailor Moon, but it's a thing like in that stupid anime. Whenever one of the women transforms, there's this transformation scene which is like very girly with girly music and all that. That's like from back then.
We
That
need
should
some
be a good
animators,
tradition.
man. We seriously need some animators. D Wood, please expose Muhammad Winger once and for all. Oh,
Explodes.
expose Muhammad Winger once for. Hey, we should start calling him Muhammad Winger. There once was a sheikh, Yasir. Let's see. There once was a Sheikh Yasir Qadhi who came out from his hole looking sadi. On a recent live stream, he demolished the deen and said all the hadiths are gone. Body. That's pretty good. And Yasir Qadhi shall count three, and he shall lob the whole. Oh, this is from Monty Python. And Yasir Qadhi shall count three, and he shall lob the holy hand grenade of Antioch at thy foes, who, being naughty in my sight, shall snuff it. That's because
Very powerful.
Hatun brought up Antioch. I adore the lady in red. She's a real mensch. And as always, I love you, handsome pair of men. I watch AP today speaking at his conference. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, his whole speech was, hey, follow me on YouTube. Follow me on
Yeah.
YouTube. What Dai created
Something
the
better to do.
What Dai created the greatest anti-Islam polemic? Tough call. I'm thinking. Tough call. I'd have to think about that one. The real question is, what is the holes in the narrative 3.0, and when will the inevitable happen? Yeah, I don't know if they can handle any more beyond this. It was a bad year. AP, next week, God willing, I will become a cat human as well, Byzantine.
Oh,
Or,
Really?
as some call it, based entine. So at some point,
Really,
we'll have to challenge
Ash?
you to cat human mubahala before you baptize.
so Ash is I'm a little bit familiar with him. I watched some of his videos. Very interesting fellow. Maybe we should talk to him sometime. I would like to talk to him actually. I would like to invite him. He has a YouTube channel. He does videos. He is actually former Orthodox Jewish, and so he talks about Jewish things and Christian things and how they relate and so on. The last update that I saw from Ash was that he can't really be a Christian or call himself a Christian, and he can't he for different reasons he can't really believe in it, but he feels or he thinks from his research and all that Christianity just seems very, very true and all that. So I'm very surprised and maybe positively surprised that with this development. Tell me more about it, and congratulations.
Sehr interessant. It potentially could make a great debate. Title of debate: Who has made the biggest hole in the narrative? Muhammad Hijab or Yasir Qadhi? Could be very eye-opening. We could actually do that debate. We could have
Or
a
the
debate.
Al-Zut.
And it could have like a 2-on-2 debate, and some will argue for Muhammad Hijab, and some will argue for Sheikh Yasir Qadhi.
Who has made the biggest hole, Yasir Qadhi, Muhammad Hijab, or the Al-Zut?
Ghost of Yasir Qadhi's career is out thing to get you 3. The ghost of his career. Yo, thanks for all you guys do. You've really helped me keep from being intellectually molested. God bless. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. All right, guys. We're ready to check out the next clip, which is the recent one. So this is about 4 minutes. But Sheikh Yasir, and I'm using the version that I first saw on Twitter. I think it was a Muslim channel about the Quran or something like that. I forget where this. The channel is Quran Talk. I don't know if that's a Muslim channel or non-Muslim channel. Oh, ooh. Quran Talk, they have the hashtag Quran Alone. So they might be a Quran only channel. So they might actually like what he's saying about the Hadith. Oh, they're actually they're posting behind veils videos too, which is against Muhammad Hijab stuff. So okay, so this sounds like, again, I'm just looking at the title and a couple of the videos here, but looks like they're Quran only Muslims, and so they don't like a lot of the dawah guy nonsense, and probably not terribly big fans of the Hadith. So anyway, but I downloaded the video from that, so they actually have the words at the bottom and stuff like that, the subtitles. So we'll go ahead and check that out. Everyone ready? AP, be prepared. You haven't seen this, have you? Have you seen this clip even?
No.
Be prepared to have your mind blown at the fact that Yasir Qadhi is honest for 5 seconds again. No, he's honest for 4 minutes, 4 whole minutes. That's a record for Yasir Qadhi. Here we go.
My preliminary conclusion is there is no middle ground. And historical critical method and isnad analysis are two diametrically opposed ways of looking at early Islam and reports, and I don't find much commonality between them.
What happened to his voice, man? Is he trying to be masculine or something?
I have no idea. But so guys, he's saying there's no middle ground. They're just completely opposed ways of doing things. The historical critical method, that's what historians use. And then isnad criticism is the Muslim method. And you in theory, I guess, try to reconcile them or try to bridge them. And he's saying does not work. You kind of have to pick one based on which hat you're wearing at a given time. But let's see.
As of yet. Obviously in small areas here, but overall, two diametrically opposed epistemologies. That having been said, therefore, one will have to navigate the religious side of things if you are a believing Sunni, Hadith believer, in a different epistemology. And when you are arguing in the academic world, you'll have to use a different epistemology. So in some areas, there's good, healthy overlap. In some areas, we'll politely agree to disagree. And in some areas, they're diametrically opposed. This is my preliminary analysis, and I would love to be proven wrong. And I would love for somebody to come and say, no, you are absolutely incorrect. And we can prove hadith via the historical critical method. And this is how we do it.
Spoiler alert, that's never going to happen, Yasir Qadhi, because your hadith methodology is garbage. So no one's ever going to refute what you're saying right now, namely that they're diametrically opposed ways. So it's never going to happen. What will happen is they'll try and shame you and threaten you and so on and destroy your career, because that's how things work in Islam. So they're not going to actually refute you.
That's what I would do.
They'll just try to shame you into keeping your mouth shut for the rest of your life, which tells us all something about Islam. So thank you for the education.
And I would literally thank that person and be the first to buy the book and love to see it. As of yet, though, I'm a little bit pessimistic and I don't see there to be much of a commonality. So we're going to have to simply say, if you believe in that the Sunnah has been preserved by the Hadith, you're going to have to follow a certain epistemology, a certain paradigm. And if you are, like, as you're aware, and you're an academic channel, right? You're well aware, nobody in the academy affirms the Muslim Sunni science of Hadith.
Did you catch that? No one in the academic realm affirms that this is a good methodology that should be taken seriously, right? Now, isn't that interesting? Yeah, I mean, it's not like, oh yeah, it's a minority of academics who take our methodology. No one. No, once you get out of the Muslim mindset of like a sheikh and what he says, once you get to the anything more critical, no one takes this seriously. Zero. Interesting.
epistemology, a certain paradigm. And if you are, like, as you're aware, and you're an academic channel, right? You're well aware, nobody in the academy affirms the Muslim Sunni science of Hadith.
Ouch.
Nobody. It is
Ouch.
considered to be completely discredited. I'm just...
Wow, man, he just has to double down with the
That's
wording.
what he said. That's what he just... Everyone, that just happened. You are not imagining this. You are not dreaming. Allah's not tricking you into believing that that just happened. That really happened.
Wait, we got to play it again, man.
Like, can you play it again so people don't miss it? It's very important.
We can play it 100 times. We could just spend the rest of this live stream. We got other stuff to look at, but as far as I'm concerned, we could spend the rest of this live stream replaying that right there. It's considered completely discredited by actual historians, real historians. People who are trained historians. They look at that methodology and they think it's a joke. It is a complete joke to them. And Yasir, we've known that. Yasir Qadhi just admitted it. Thank you, Yasir Qadhi. You're worth every penny.
Affirms the Muslim Sunni science of Hadith. Nobody. It is considered to be completely discredited. I'm just being factual. I'm describing. I'm not saying which one is right or wrong. I'm just saying the max you'll get, like Harold Motsky and others are going to say, well, like, as you're aware, and you're an academic channel, right? You're well aware, nobody in the academy affirms the Muslim Sunni science of Hadith. Nobody. It is considered to be completely discredited. I'm just being factual. I'm describing. I'm not saying which one is right or wrong. I'm just saying the max you'll get, like Harold Motsky and others are.
What's up?
We have said this forever, haven't we? I mean, lots of us have said this forever because, and Muslims keep coming with this whole thing. Oh no, you don't even have a chain of narration. Whereas we in Islam,
yeah, that's Sajid.
You
don't even have the isnad, man.
Yeah, you ain't got the isnad, man. But it's like, dude, this is something important and something significant in Islam to Muslims only by Muslim standards. We have said this forever because there are so many aspects, and I guess you could write this down. You could break this down very nicely. This brings to mind there was a book that I read quite a while ago about Hadith methodology or Hadith science, written by a Muslim scholar, and it was a very good way to have a very quick overview to understand how Hadith science works. You could actually write a book briefly explaining why Hadith science is discredited and complete nonsense and doesn't work outside Islam. As a Muslim, yes, it is powerful, it's good, you can totally believe it, you can totally buy it, you can run with it. However, you can't sell it to non-Muslims because it comes with too many criteria that require you to be a believing, faithful, trusting Muslim in order to accept the hadiths and their authenticity as they were graded within the so-called Islamic science. You have to qualify hadiths as authentic or good or reliable or inauthentic or weak, depending on what other Muslims have said and how they evaluated the Muslim narrators, how they accepted certain people for their morals and dismissed others for their simple beliefs and such. These are and that is just the surface. There are so many problems with it. You would never accept these, the Hadith methodology, the Hadith sciences, in a proper secular historian context or anything like that. You have to rely on Islam. So when you start analyzing it from a proper perspective, without the Islamic bias, it all falls apart. And that's what academia does. Academia puts the Islamic bias aside and evaluates it on its own, secularly, and it falls apart, and he knows it.
Learning the hard way. What were you saying, Hatun?
So when apostate prophet says that, he's Islamophobe. when Robert Spencer says it, he's Islamophobe. And then the things Robert Spencer is being saying for God knows how many years. Now Yasir Qadhi is simply saying, yeah, trust me, bro, doesn't work. Because that person said something 1,400 years ago. There is nothing I can chase that back. It's not like they even wrote down. That person passed it to someone. That person passed it to someone else. That person passed it to someone else. Now, the very daily Muslim life is just what someone else said to someone else to someone else 1,400 years ago.
Yep. And
The big. Sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, just want to what both you were saying. There were two really big takeaways there. So Hatun pointed out, like what Robert Spencer was saying years ago. Now, oh hey, look, I just wanted to point out, guys, if you go back to like 2005, 2008, or something like that, look at what we were saying back then. To those of us who are there saying stuff, and look at what Muslims were saying back then, and then look at who turned out to be right. Right. So if you go back then, when we would say back then that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, we were called liars by a bunch of dawah guys. We're liars. Almost the entire Muslim world would call us liars over saying that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. So we were saying one thing, they were saying the opposite. Who turned out to be right? We did. Back then, they were saying perfect preservation right down to the letter of the Quran. We were saying that's a total lie. Who was proven right? We were saying the scientific miracle stuff is a bunch of nonsense. They even admit that now. And we were saying you got all sorts of problems with Hadith methodology. It's all screwed up. And now you've got Yasir Qadhi admit. Are you guys noticing a pattern? We disagree, and it takes 10, 15, 20 years to argue about this stuff, but we keep getting proven right every single time, and they get proven to be liars every single time. Why do you still trust these guys? Why? If you see this and you see the guys who are telling that these guys are disagreeing and you side with the Muslims because you're a Muslim, and who turns out to be a liar 100% of the time? Your guys. Your da'is, they turn out to be, your scholars, they turn out to be the ones lying. Why does this not bother you? The fact that it doesn't bother the ummah, it just looks like you guys like love lies and you just prefer the lies. And we've got ample confirmation of that, because whenever someone like Yasir Qadhi is forced to tell the truth for 5 seconds, you guys lose your minds. How dare you tell us the truth? We only love lies. It's the kuffar who tell us the truth. Are you kuffar? Are you a kafir now? That's what it looks like. The other thing that I found interesting, like, because AP, you're talking about, this methodology and so on. What's interesting to me is, like, you're right, they cling to this methodology and they think this is the only way to do history. But what's interesting, this didn't come from Allah. This isn't something that came from Allah or Muhammad or something like this. This is something that later Muslims invented, and you guys take it as foundational to your religion, such that you're a heretic if you reject it. You're a heretic, perhaps an apostate, if you do not accept this man-made methodology. It's some guys who hey, we got a problem here because we keep making up stories to justify anything we want to believe. Let's come up with a methodology. Hey, let's check the list of names, because obviously, if we think someone could have fabricated a story, there's no way he could fabricate a list of names. So that'll prove that's how we prove that something is authentic. That's something that was invented by human beings, and you take it as foundational to your religion, and you'll blast Yasir Qadhi and call him a heretic for rejecting something that human beings invented. Again, it just didn't come from Allah, didn't come from Muhammad, and it's foundational to your religion. And then you, like Sajid, you don't just make it foundational to your religion, then you make this stupid, idiotic, nonsense methodology foundational to all of history. This is the only way to do history, according to Sajid. It's insane. Go ahead.
Just point out something you said. So Muslims in 900s, late 800s, even it goes to like 1300s. So they didn't kind of sit down and then say, okay, it seems we have some problems right now. We need to figure out actually what Muhammad said. That wasn't their concern. Their concern is who are the names I can use to justify what I'm telling people or give authority what I am saying.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they come up with those bunch of names. They were not even curious about whether this is what Muhammad said or what Muhammad did. That's concerning as well.
Yes, and oh, go ahead, AP.
No, finish your thought, because I wanted to talk about how why this whole hadith issue is a very, very big problem, and how it endangers Islam itself eventually. But go ahead, and I'll talk.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out what Hatun just said right there about the hadith methodology. That is exactly what you read from actual academics, like scholars who there are. There aren't a ton of non-Muslim hadith scholars. There's tons of like non-Muslim scholars in Islamic studies and so on. But as far as the actual like hadith guys and so on, yeah, what you had was Islam early on was basically regional. You had sort of different versions of Islam. If you went to Medina, you had kind of one Islam. They had a lot in common. So if you went there, if you went to Kufa, if you went to various regions of the Muslim world, they would have there would be common features. They would have the prayers and stuff like that, but they would significantly disagree on practices and so on. And what happens is, as Islam is expanding and so on, they realize, hey, we need one Islam. They need one Islam. So what happens is, if you're in one city and it could be an issue like mutta, you can go to the hadith, you can go to Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, and you will find in the same hadith collections, with Sahih, all graded Sahih, you will find some of the hadiths saying that Muhammad allowed mutta, temporary marriage, for a while, and then he forbade it. And so it was forbidden from then on. You'll go to other sources and they'll say Muhammad never outlawed mutta. A later caliph did. And so, well, what's going on there? Well, guess what? Some areas of the Muslim world allowed mutta. Other areas of the Muslim world didn't allow mutta. And when they try to come up with what is the official teaching of Islam, they both start making up where they got this from, right? And the tendency, as Hatun pointed out, was to trace it back to some important figure. And at first, it's just, oh, I got it from this smart guy, or I got it from that smart guy, and so on. And so the tendency was to keep pushing it back further and further until you eventually got to a companion of Muhammad. But they're just making this up. They're just making these names up. Not making the names up, but they're making up this chain of transmission to connect it to an important companion to show that their story is the correct one. And so later on, when you get the hadith methodology, guess what? People on both sides of an issue are making up lists of names to justify their claim. And so both those lists of names will meet the criteria of a hadith scholar like Bukhari or Imam Muslim. And so they'll both be classified as sahih, even though they contradict each other. And one says, yep, Muhammad said no more mutta. And another, no, we were practicing mutta long after the time of Muhammad and eventually a different caliph. And they're both sahih. And they're telling you something completely different. So that's what's actually going on. And that's why historians who actually look at this, I think this whole system's a joke. It's beyond ridiculous. Muslims, nope, it's the only way to do history. And anyone who doesn't do history like this just doesn't know how history is done the Islamic way.
They're stupid.
All right. So what were you saying, AP?
So there's one thing here, which is that lots of people might not really care about the hadiths and why this is so significant. But the hadiths are you might disregard the hadith and say, oh, okay, the hadith are bad, but you still have the Quran and all that. But there's also a big problem, which we often pointed out when we talked about what's wrong with the Quran-only Muslims, for example, which is that my point, whenever people ask me about why Quran-only Islam doesn't work, is that in order to qualify or in order to authenticate, to verify the Quran, you have to rely on the hadiths. You can't just have the Quran and say, oh, this is the book that we got, and this is the truth, and everything else is probably not reliable and probably not good and all that. But this is not how Islam works. You could do this if you had, for example, I don't know, if you were Christians, you could treat Christianity, you could treat the Bible in a different way, and rely on tradition and all that. And you can't really do this with Islam, because Islam is very, very clear that it relies on that. This is the main argument. This is the argument that they always make, which is that that the Quran is the only perfectly preserved book ever. It was directly revealed and dictated by Allah without any interference, word for word. We know it for sure, and this is the great miracle, and so on. I'm sorry, you can't have all that if you start doubting the hadiths, which is why if the hadith sciences start falling apart here, right? If the hadith science comes into question, and we eventually come to a place where even Muslims themselves say, okay, you know what, there is no real way to properly affirm the hadiths and affirm their authenticity, affirm the way that we Muslims verify and authenticate the hadith. There is no real way that we can do this. There is no real way we can confirm this. There is no way we can really argue that, and so on. They also have to call the Quran into question, because the Quran is authenticated, is verified, depending on the hadith. The same transmitters that that transmit the hadiths are also the ones that transmit the Quran and its contents. The same people who are the same isnad system, right? The same verification, authentication, delivering system of the hadith is also done with the Quran. We know that the Quran that is in use today in its most popular form, or Muslims know that this is the Quran as it was originally revealed, because this is what the transmitters and what the traditions say about the Quran. We don't actually have a proper Quran canon. We only verify the Quran canon with later hadiths. We can only verify how the contents of the Quran as they currently are were compiled by Muhammad's successors through the hadiths. If we don't have these things, if all of these things come into question, if all of this starts getting really, really shaky, and we say, okay, maybe we can't really trust the hadiths, then we also can't really trust the Quran. And that's where Islam falls apart.
Indeed. And so you just point, there are multiple ways the Quran falls apart if this hadith system breaks down. One, how do you even know about how the Quran was compiled and so on, and how do you even know where the Quran comes from, where it dates from, and so on? The Quran doesn't say. The Quran gives you details, which you then tie to the hadith, and you can kind of try to pin things down. So there's that. You don't know anything about the origin of the Quran unless you go to the hadith. So you've got that. You don't know the historical background. Tons of Quran passages are answering specific questions, and you don't know unless you go to the hadith, which tells you, oh, we asked this, and therefore this is an answer to that. That tells you what Allah is talking about there. So without that context, you don't know what the Quran means. And then there are things where you have absolutely no clue what the Quran means. It's not even about the historical background of what was being discussed right then. It's you don't know at all what this is about. Like, you have Abu Lahab being condemned, and this guy's going to hell and so on. Well, who's he? Doesn't say. What did he do? Doesn't say. You have no idea who this guy is unless you go outside of the Quran. So you have all kinds of things where I literally have no idea what this is about, who this person is or what he did, without going outside of the Quran. And so you have all those kinds of issues. And then you have all the issues like basic Muslim practices of the vast majority of Muslims, like prayer 5 times a day. Guess what, guys? The Quran mentions 3 prayers. What the Shahada is. You have a kind of Shahada in the Quran. You have there's no God but Allah. But as far as there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger, that comes from the Hadith. Basic Muslim prayer. What do you do on the Hajj? What do? You don't know from the Quran. You get that from the Hadith. So when Yasir Qadhi is going after the Hadith right now, this is like Islam shattering. This is like Islam shattering. And the dawah guys, they understand this. They understand if he simply casts a little bit of doubt on the Hadith, we are in trouble, because we have been conditioning our fans to just have complete confidence in this methodology. If you realize, wait a minute, actually the methodology is stupid and it's considered a joke and no one in the academic world takes it seriously. What if the Ummah finds that out? It might be almost as bad as finding out that the Quran hasn't been perfectly preserved.
Also, if you think about it, you pointed out that without hadith, they wouldn't know they need to pray 5 times a day, but they wouldn't even know how to do their prayer.
Mhm.
That's
And
true.
you've got Surah 4, verse 64 to 65. Muhammad needs to be the judge of everything.
Mhm.
How it is sad that we are sitting here and then making case for Sunni Muslims to use against Quran onlys, but without hadith, they wouldn't know how to use Muhammad as judge in everything.
Mhm.
Surah 331. Allah, if you love Allah, you follow Muhammad. How do you follow Muhammad? Hadith. Surah 8, verse 12, verse 13. The verse where expresses Allah and his angels are terrorists. And how do you deal with that? Oh, well, if you go, it says like, if you oppose Allah's messenger. So what do you need to know about Allah's messenger so that you don't oppose, that you are not under the terror of Allah and his angels? So they are desperately need hadith. And then Yasir Qadhi steps in and then says, guys, by the way, I've been dealing with this conflict for long time now, but I would like to express that historians are simply discrediting the hadith.
I have to say, this is a really awkward position because both sides are basically right about something, right? So the Quran-only Muslims, they understand the Hadith is basically a garbage system, so they're calling it out. The Sunni Muslims understand without the Hadith, the Quran falls apart. So it's like either way, we are in all kinds of trouble. This would be like a new Islamic dilemma. Hadith or no Hadith, you got to pick one. Anyway, these are fun. Anyway, all right, let's let Yasir Qadhi continue burying Islam for us.
Sunni science of hadith. Nobody. It is considered to be completely discredited. I'm just being factual. I'm describing. I'm not saying which one is right or wrong. I'm just saying
You kind of are.
the max you'll get, like Harold Motsky and others are going to say, well, we can say that some hadith definitely go back to some tabi'un. That's like the max you can say. As for definitively stating that the hadith go back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at this stage of my life, I will have to say this is what I say as a believer, not as an academic.
You catch that, AP? Two worlds. This is what I say as a believer, not as an academic. As an academic, I cannot defend this. I cannot defend this as an academic. So I just have to say, I believe in this because I'm a Muslim and I've accepted this. Can I defend it against criticism? No, not at all. I give up.
Exactly what I just was trying to point out here. What he just said is
thank you for proving AP right, Yasir Qadhi, and for agreeing 100% with the apostate prophet on this issue and the conundrum you're in.
This is exactly what I just meant. So Muslims come to us and try to argue in our faces that that Islam is completely reliable and completely trustworthy. Of course, if we have any questions about it, it's just because we don't know anything, or because we are unreliable and dishonest, and how can we even trust our own sources and all that? And Islam is completely affirmed. Everybody knows it. Here is Yasir Qadhi saying exactly what I just speculated and what I just talked about, which is that, yes, as a believer, you can believe in that and you can affirm that. However, as an academic, if you put belief and your religious biases aside, there is no way that you can actually affirm the Islamic hadith sciences and the reliability of the hadiths, and by extension, therefore, also the reliability of the Quran. I'm sorry. And he is going to make a distinction probably and say, oh, the Quran, Quran, totally firm, totally sure, totally no doubt. But he knows very well that the Quran also relies on the hadith sciences, as they ironically call it. And if you can only affirm the Quran science, the hadith sciences, if you are a Muslim. So when Muslims come to me from now on, or if we accept Yasir Qadhi's world here, if Muslims come to me and they say, well, are you stupid? This is all confirmed. This is all authentic. We have our chain of narrations, our chain of narratives. How can you doubt this? Are you stupid? I can point at Yasir Qadhi and say, Yasir Qadhi is a scholar. and he admits that this is only something that you would use as authentic and reliable if you are a believing and trusting Muslim. You can't really use that outside of your Islamic biases. You cannot use it in academia where it is actually subject to scrutiny. So therefore, you can't expect me to accept your methods of reliability here. It doesn't work. It is only for you Muslims. And if we have to put our biases aside and sit down and evaluate whether these things are reliable or not, we have to conclude that they are not very reliable. So therefore, I win.
Yeah, dude, we need to seriously probably, and no, we do. We need to make a video and put this argument out there that, so what he's saying, as you're pointing out, he's saying, hey, because I'm a Muslim, I accept this. Academically, apart from just being a Muslim and already being convinced of Islam and then accepting whatever methodology Islam has to offer, apart from that, it's indefensible. And no one outside of Islam takes this methodology seriously. How do you convince us then, who aren't Muslims and who don't just blindly accept it? How do you do that now? This dude just destroyed dawah, right? How are you going to defend the Quran? You need the Hadith to defend the Quran. From a non-Muslim perspective, do we have any reason to trust the Hadith? According to Yasir Qadhi, zero. None. Why would we take it seriously? What's that mean? How do you convince us? You're saying, hey, since we're Muslims, we're just going to by blind faith accept the things that Muslims accept. Okay, we're not Muslims. Why are we going to blindly accept the things that Muslims accept? Why? Why would we do that? What reason do you have for us to become Muslims now? So perfect preservation, that went by scientific miracles, that's gone. Now we can't even know basically the basic historic background of the revelations in the Quran or what they mean. And you say, oh, but if you accept Islam, then you'll just accept our stories about what. Okay, why are we going to take that leap of blind faith to adopt your religion? Why? You just wrecked your religion, man. Thank you, Yasir Qadhi. Doing a bang-up job, man. Keep going. Go, Yasir. And don't listen to anyone. Don't listen to any of these guys who tell you to slow down, Yasir Qadhi. You just keep crushing it, man. Just keep crushing it.
Go, Yasir. Go, Qadhi.
Everyone who's criticizing you, Yasir Qadhi, they're just jealous and they're haters because you're so popular. So don't listen to them. Listen to your heart. And keep telling the truth on random weird occasions. Listen to your heart.
I want to call him Yasir Qadhi B from now on.
Yasir Qadhi B. Yasir Qadhi B. Nice.
Actively stating that the hadith go back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At this stage of my life, I will have to say this is what I say as a believer, not as an academic. At this stage, and if somebody proves me wrong, then I would love to come across that and say, no, we can prove academically. Because here's the point. We can academically prove, by and large, that the Prophet ﷺ preached the Quran, the words that we have today. The Uthmanic Mus'haf, that's like a solid given, right? The wordings of the Quran, by and large, we can academically, of course, believers, we say that from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the academy has pretty much proven scientifically, through the historical critical method, that there's an Uthmanic Mus'haf. Yeah. That much is.
So he's saying the academics will grant that Muhammad was there, that he was delivering these revelations, that what we have in the Quran is basically what goes back to Muhammad, and that there was an Uthmanic recension and so on. So he's saying, hey, that's stuff that scholars will grant. The academics will grant that. They're not going to grant this stuff from later on and so on. Let's see.
I would say even that is contested because what they will grant is that this goes back, this text and its contents go back to the time of Muhammad as it is recorded. That's what they will say. So that's what the academic idea or the academic suggestion is. However, there simply is no. I mean, if you want to go full skeptic and look for the evidence here, there simply is no way to confirm academically that the text that we have, that the whole context so the whole contents of the Quran, all the contents, are actually exactly what Muhammad said and spoke. There is no way to actually confirm that, to actually verify that. So no academic will go as far as saying, yeah, we can totally confirm and affirm that 100% of the Quran's contents came out of Muhammad's mouth. That is simply impossible. Even that relies on hadiths and on faith. But aside from that, I don't even have a problem with affirming that 100% of the Quran's contents actually go back to Muhammad. So even if that was somehow established, which it hasn't been and never will be, even with that, I wouldn't have a problem. But then, of course, we are all left with speculating about what Muhammad's motives were, what kind of a person Muhammad was, whether we can rely all these biased people that have delivered us to hadith to later solidify the personality of Muhammad and his motives and so on. So we are left with simply one man, one deluded man who was pretty messed up even according to Muslim traditions, saying a bunch of ramblings and pretty bad ones. And we have no idea whether he got it from some revelations, whether he actually worked some magic or something. We don't know any of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sort of in Sheikh Yasir Qadhi's defense there. So you're pointing out, hey, if you're really skeptical, you can't prove much. I think he's talking about like historians would be they'd be basing their conclusions on basically inference to the best explanation. Using the inference to the best explanation, they would say, yes, there's a Muhammad. He's receiving revelations. He's delivering these revelations to his followers and stuff like that. And the Quran is what we've got that has been passed down to us. So no, they're not going to grant perfect preservation and so on. They might think that there were interpolations and things like that, but they're granting that there was a guy named Muhammad, and keep in mind, even this isn't everyone. He's just saying in general, this would be a common view. If there's a guy Muhammad, he claimed to be a prophet. He delivered, he was delivering revelations that he supposedly got from God. They get passed down to his followers, and eventually there's this early crisis where they say, okay, we've got differences, and we need to do something about it. And Uthman burns all the Quran. Notice even there, that would be like the reason they would think that's true is like based on like principle of embarrassment. Why would you make something if that didn't happen? Why would you make something like that up? So they would be applying historical principles and trying to come up with the best explanation for the data that we have. But that methodology does not help you when you're quoting Sahih al-Bukhari or something like that. There are things in Sahih al-Bukhari where you might apply historical principles to and say, hey, we think this is authentic information. But as he's about to point out, you can't just say, oh, it's in Sahih al-Bukhari and think that an academic is going to take that seriously.
Also, if you think about it, Muslim academics are telling us even that so-called Uthman's Quran, which was sent to 6 to 9 different cities, they have nothing to do, the manuscripts kind of left over, they have nothing to do with Uthman. So like even Muslim historians, Muslim scholars are very kind of not going back to do even Uthman's manuscripts that kind of matches with our Quran, Muslims' Quran today. There is a huge concern as well over there. So the Qurans which they said, oh, this is Uthman's Quran, oh, this is even has Uthman's blood. So they've got 3 Quranic manuscripts. For decades, they've been telling us, oh, this is from the time of Uthman, this has the blood of Uthman. And now scholars are telling us, actually, no, Uthman was long dead. But while this Quran was put together, it has nothing to do with Uthman's blood. So intentionally, like they lied and then even put in front of the manuscripts, oh, this is the Quran Uthman was reading when they murdered him, all those kind of things. Muslims are telling us that has nothing to do with Uthman. So you have, yes, I'm kind of very much where by gently they are going to say, oh yeah, this is probably what Muhammad preached. But from the manuscripts, they won't be for sure at all. So Quran messed up, Hadith messed up, and Muslims
but
are
Islam perfect.
Yeah, Muslims are under the bus. Let Islam be perfect.
Yep.
There is no followers at all.
Boy, I haven't checked Sajid's channel. I don't know if he's posted on this yet, but he must be losing his mind. And
I checked it. He hasn't posted anything.
He will.
Why would Sheikh Yasir Qadhi go
Where's
there?
the hikmah? Where's the hikmah? What's up with all these low hikmah? So-called scholars.
He needs to check his hikmah levels.
Yeah,
What's
check your
going
hikmah.
on?
Need to take some hikmah supplements. No, we love Yasir Qadhi. He's got the hikmah. He's got the hikmah. Don't listen to Sajid. You do you. You do you, Yasir Qadhi. And when I say you do you, I mean go ahead and keep wrecking Islam for us. Let's see.
There's
Sajid Libim should call himself the hikmah police.
Hikmah police. That'd be awesome.
Mus'haf. That much is beyond reasonable doubt. And the fact that there's an Uthmanic Mus'haf, we're talking about senior companions all being alive, right? So by and large, the normative interpretation of the modern academy is that what the Quran claims to be, the wordings of the Quran, the preaching of the Quran, the teaching of the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ said them. This is the mainstream, and we can prove this. As of yet, I don't think we can do that to the Hadith literature. And we're just going to have to understand.
Yeah, did you catch that? Did you catch that, everyone who's watching? He says, hey, there are certain things we can prove. We can't do this with the Hadith literature. What do you mean? You can't prove it. But we kind of need that literature to accept Islam or to think that any of this nonsense is true. And here's Yasir Qadhi saying, from a non-Muslim perspective, nothing. We can't prove this at all. Ouch. Play this.
I don't think we can do that to the Hadith literature. And we're just going to have to understand these are two different epistemologies. So when I become Sheikh Yasir and I go and preach and teach, I will quote Sahih Bukhari and I will quote Sahih Muslim and I will say قال الله قال رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and that's the preacher. And I understand in the academy I cannot quote Bukhari and this will be what the Prophet ﷺ said. I understand this, so I'm just going to have to use a different, epistemology. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, it answers a lot of questions, Yasir Qadhi. Let me play that little part again. So when he's Sheikh Yasir Qadhi and he's preaching at the masjid, yeah, he can say, and our Prophet said. But when he walks into the room with actual scholars and historians, doesn't work, and he's not even going to try. He knows he can't defend it. This is the double life of a Muslim who actually learns what non-Muslim scholars think about things, and actually think that you need to be able to prove stuff if you're going to claim it. If you can't prove it, we're not interested. He's saying I cannot meet your standard of what? Being able to show that what you're claiming is true, or that you even the best explanation. Keep in mind, actual historians, they'd be fine if you just show that what you're claiming is the best explanation. It doesn't have to rule out every other possible alternative or anything like that. You just have to show this is the best explanation of the evidence we have. You can't even meet that requirement, which means you can't give basic reasons to think that your position is correct. Ouchie. Let's watch that again real quick.
And we can prove this. As of yet, I don't think we can do that to the Hadith literature. And we're just going to have to understand these are two different epistemologies. So when I become Sheikh Yasir and I go and preach and teach, I will quote Sahih Bukhari and I will quote Sahih Muslim and I will say قال الله قال رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and that's the preacher. And I understand in the academy I cannot quote Bukhari and this will be what the Prophet ﷺ said. I understand this, so I'm just going to have to use a different, epistemology. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah. Definitely, buddy.
It's very helpful. Thank you. Well, as Muhammad Hijab would say, good boy. There we have him admit everything. He's admitting everything right there. So this is the secret double life of Yasir Qadhi, where he is as a scholar, he can say, "Oh yeah, we totally believe, man. Yeah, this is what Allah said. This is what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said." However, without his faith that this is the truth, he can't come to me, for example, and say, "This is what Allah said." Because I would have to ask him by his own standards, I'm sorry, I can't trust you. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if this is reliable or not. I can't trust you.
Oh, hey, dude. we'll need to go through these super chats because a very serious, I hadn't thought of it. A brutal one just came up, which someone needs to make this a video. Hint, Hatun, because I know AP is not going to do it. But this would be seriously damaging, putting this together with something. So let's go through a couple of these and get to it. Wow, this is bad. But yeah, Enzo Adrian said, didn't he just prove Jay Smith correct? Well, I'm sure Jay Smith loves this, and it'll be consistent with what Jay Smith is saying as far as like the unreliability of the hadith and not being able to prove the hadith and so on. But that would be consistent with all. It would be consistent with all kinds of things. And so what he just said was people grant that there was a Muhammad and that he's delivering the verses. So that would not fit with what Jay is saying. But keep in mind what Jay is saying is that the best explanation is that that the Muhammad of Islam did not exist. That's the best explanation for everything. So no, Yasir Qadhi would not be granting anything like that. But again, I'm pretty darn sure Jay and Robert are loving the fact that he just seriously undermined the hadiths.
Robert Spencer put up a video thanking Yasir Qadhi.
That sounds like Robert. All right. Yeah, I want to get down to the super chat I saw because that's awesome. God, Jesus Christ, bless you all. Thank you. Here's one for AP. AP, nice to see you coming down from your high place and choosing to discord with us mere peasants over your new best friends like Tucker Carlson.
Oh yeah, it's I can take a little bit of time out of my busy elite life to do this. So you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice. Shocked scholars don't buy the teen girl method. Lisa said Jenny told her. Paula said Tina has a huge crush on Bobby. They're so popular. So it's true. I'm screenshotting that. I'm gonna make fun of that using that. These are fun times. 2025 is awesome. Willing to bet that D Wood is going to start a new segment. What did Yasir Qadhi say this week? That should be. We need a. No, I mean, seriously, it seems like every few years he just blurts out something that is like just devastating to Islam. And so when was that, Hatun? 2020?
2021.
So let's say every 5 years, we got to wait till 2030 for the next one. We don't even know what it will be. I've concluded that God does not exist. Like what? But I understand that as a Muslim, I'm going to believe in Allah anyway. It's going to be something serious like that. But my goodness, wow. This guy's getting himself into trouble. Islam is completely discredited. You see the proof. This is proof. Whoops. Sorry. Went backwards. First, the Quran. Second, the Hadith. The only thing he could do to destroy Islam more is to say the Islamic dilemma holds weight. I'm calling it. Oh, that would be a good one.
I must say it is a good argument. As an academic, it is a good argument. As a sheikh, I will say it's garbage. But
yes.
As an academic, I have to admit it is.
He's going to have to say, from a logical, historical, scholarly perspective, the Islamic dilemma conclusively refutes and destroys Islam. It cannot possibly be true from an academic perspective because of the Islamic dilemma. However, when I put on my Muslim Sheikh kufi, I say that the Islamic dilemma is wrong and that the Quran says the Bible's been corrupted. It's going to be that. Awesome stuff. Ali Dawa's new toilet paper. Learn a hadith per sheet. Islam needs isnad chains while we wrote it down. Islam needs isnad chains while we wrote it down. Yeah. Again, guys, that's a Chinese proverb. The weakest ink will outlast the strongest memory. And they said, hey, let's preserve our book. And they tried it with the book. That didn't work. But let's do it with all these stories about Muhammad. Let's just pass them on for generation after generation after generation. Hadith is like primitive Islamic internet. It's funny. I wish I could have taken Hadith science as an elective in college. It's a class where you learn how to invent a chain of narration. Nice.
Nice.
Yasir Qadhi is the Bart Ehrman of Islamic theology. The Islamic holes have a narrative in them. Yep.
True.
Isnad equals dropping names just to be believed. Usually what liars do.
Yep.
I mean, seriously. Hey, you're just making this up. You just made that up. No, I got it from Abdullah. Well, how do you know he didn't make it up? Well, he got it from Shuaib. Bad. Doesn't this mean Yasir stepped out of Islam since the Hadiths? Because while it isn't Sunnah, it's relied upon to give info on the Sunnah. Well, here's the thing: he's not denying the Hadith. He's just saying, I live a double life. I cannot defend this academically, but as a Muslim, I accept it by blind faith as part of my religion. So he's technically not rejecting it. He's just saying it can't be defended.
He's got like 2 jobs. Both of them are paid. Going and preaching in the mosque, he's paid, and then he just fulfills his contract. At universities, he's paid, he fulfills his contract. Good
Job's
business.
a job. A job's a
Yeah,
job.
Yeah.
One hand, the Quran reveals all, and even a child will understand. In the other hand, you need Hadith, Tafsir, and Webster's Dictionary to understand what good means. That is another problem that we need to draw attention to. It's all like their pitch to people is Islam is so simple and easy to understand. It's not all confusing like the Trinity and so on. And you start looking and what a nightmare this religion is to even understand it. Isnad equals hearsay. Isnad
I was going to say
okay.
that was the Sajid's video. What his word means.
Oh yeah. This is what a word means. Isnad equals hearsay. There's a reason why it's not accepted in Western courts.
It's pretty rude.
Mitvos Golem claims there are hundreds of variants in the Christian text, New Testament. Can you please address this? I know you have made videos about this, and D would cover this with Nabil, but can you address it? Yeah, we don't deny that there are textual variants. Let me go ahead and say it here. Anytime you have human beings copying entire books by hand, you are 100% of the time going to end up with textual variants. I don't mean every time you sit down, you're going to end up, if you're writing, you're going to end up with a textual variant. I mean, if that's the process that preserves your book, you are going to end up with textual variants. It's inevitable. Why? Well, your book will be copied by people with different levels of experience. You'll have a professional scribe. He will tend to be very accurate, but then you'll just have, hey, we need a copy of this. If you're talking like the 2nd century or something like that, hey, that church has a copy of the Gospel of John. We need a copy of the Gospel of John. Where are you getting that from? Someone needs to sit down and write it down. And so you end up with textual variants like that. Textual criticism is taking all the manuscripts, lining them up and saying, okay, here's a variant. What goes back? What's the original reading? And the vast majority of times you can either the variant will either be meaningless. It has no bearing on the meaning, like spelling differences and so on. It's the same word. You can just spell it differently. So it doesn't affect anything, or you can kind of tell when it arose. In other words, if a variant appears in the 7th century, why are you going to think that goes back to the 1st century if that's when it suddenly appears and so on? So vast majority, they either are irrelevant, they don't change the meaning, or they're not viable. It's not something that you would think would go back to the original and so on. Here's the thing. Big picture, you can go into any Christian bookstore and find books on textual criticism. And almost any Bible you buy, unless it's just like a little pocket version or something, almost any Bible you buy will have notes at the bottom on textual variants. Christians don't hide this. Christian scholars don't hide this. Christian apologists don't hide this. We're honest about reality, which is when human beings copy books, they end up making mistakes. That's very different from Islam, where they spent year after year after year telling people there are no textual variants in the manuscripts of the Quran. And they just consistently lie about the entire history of their book. So just if that's all you knew about Christianity and Islam, Christianity tends to produce people that want to tell the truth, even about their religion, about their book. And the other produces people who just are obsessed with lying about their book. And so why is that? Why is that? Maybe because they
Also-
worship a God who brags about being the best of deceivers.
Also, if you think about it, if all of the manuscripts were exactly the same to the dot, that would be very, very suspicious. Who is controlling what people needs to be writing down? We didn't have Uthman. That was a blessing. We didn't have Uthman. Muslims had their Uthman. While Muslims were burning their own manuscripts, Christians are being burned and given to the lions as lunch and dinner because of their manuscripts. Like early manuscripts are written under the persecution. I think it is God's amazing work what we have today. So when we see all these textual variations, I think we need to look in a sense, yeah, like I'm looking at them and I'm saying this helps me to be confident in my faith that I didn't have Uthman. I didn't have anyone who was putting gun on my head to write it down what they wanted to write it down. I just took it from people who were reading, and then this is what I'm passing it on.
Powerful. So this is what I was trying to say earlier as well. I don't want to speak too much on this, but to my understanding, this is how I understand it, and this is what I've learned so far, which is that this is a big difference between Islam and Christianity, where in Christianity it's very incredibly important how whether the text that you have of the Quran is 100% identical to how it was in the beginning or not, and whether you can 100% verify its contents, and whether you can have only one version of it or multiple variants of it. This really is a very, very big matter, because much of Islam relies on this, especially the way Muslims argue for its truth nowadays, whereas in Christianity, and this is where you can correct me if I get it wrong, to draw a distinction here. Christianity relies not so much on that aspect, but rather relies on how the Bible was given to us through the traditions, and I'm sure that there are also denominational differences on how exactly you view this and word this, but on how exactly on what the Bible teaches and how it was given to us, rather than what exactly the wording in it is, and whether it is only one version or multiple variants. In Christian history, it is accepted that there might be different variants, different ways of writing it down, different ways of delivering it. Christianity doesn't really depend on it. It depends rather on how the text is received through the traditions of the church and such, right?
You don't know what you're talking about, man. You're a cat human, man.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's why I'm saying correct me.
You are not even fit to be baptized.
Explain to me the difference here, David.
No, I'll explain nothing.
So I'm right then. That's what you're saying.
No, you can easily just stick with.
Okay.
One group is honest and the other tends to.
Okay, good. That's good.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, and here's the thing. It's like, it didn't become this way over time. It was that way from the beginning. Notice hey, we've got all these variants. What do? Burn them. Cover it all up. That was like the inclination from the beginning is it's better to be dishonest and to lie and to cover up evidence and to destroy evidence. It's better as long as that produces confident Muslims. And here we are 14 centuries later. What do the dawah guys do?
Alhamdulillah.
Awesome stuff.
So we can say Bible is the very breath of God, inspired by the Holy Spirit, written down by many people in different places, put it together, and then written text is being circulated from churches to other churches, and then people write it down under the persecution without Uthman.
Okay, yeah.
To believe or not to believe the Hadith?
Perfect.
To believe or not to believe the Hadith, which type of deception in Islam do you want? Vanilla or chocolate lies? How about no? Jesus is the only way. That's good. Why does he keep saying, saw a salami, I sell him? Salami asalam. Imagine the mental gymnastics Muslim academics do versus dawah boys. Oxymoron to the max.
It's very rude.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's that's a serious issue. That well, I have to say, if you're talking about actual Muslim academics, guys who are teaching at non-Muslim universities and so on, they may have biases and so on, but they can't be. You're not going to be teaching a class at Rice University on the history of the Quran and say it's been perfectly preserved right down to the letter. You're not going to do that. But the Muslim scholars did keep people from knowing that for a long time. So it's this double life is sort of built into the system now. If you are teaching a class at a non-Muslim university, you're going to be giving factual information, but you are never going to share that with the ummah in general. Just not going to do it. Dawagandists tremble when Yasir Qadhi puts on his blue "I'm about to totally destroy Islam" silk t-shirt on. That's his Wreckin' Islam shirt. Is Sheikh Yasir Qadhi saying it's a job? Jack Ray remembers the "it's a job" story. Oh, here we go. Any detailed video about what Islam loses? This is the one I wanted to get to. Echoing Erudite says, any detailed video about what Islam loses when the Hadith is rejected? Recall Hijab saying, without the Hadith, there's no reason not to be with a 5-year-old. You guys see how that could be combined? You take what Yasir Qadhi's saying, we can't defend the Hadith, we can't defend it academically and so on, and then combine that with what Muhammad Hijab said in his Problems with Quran-Only Islam video, that if you just go to the Quran, all it says is you can marry, have sex with, and divorce prepubescent girls. It gives no requirement. And he said, if you just went with the Quran, you conclude that you can have sex with a 5-year-old. We didn't share it as much, but we did cover it. That he went on to say that the word that's used for beating your wife, it's the same word as used for like attacking the unbelievers and striking their necks and so on. So he's saying, hey, if you're just reading the Quran and you don't know from the Hadith that there are limits on what you might do to your wife, you would think that if your wife disobeys, you could chop her head off. If you just go Quran only. And the Muslims, he was talking to Quran only Muslims, and they were pretty stumped by this. So that can be put together. So I guess a couple years from now, when all these guys are banging 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and so on and chopping off their wives' heads, everyone can thank Sheikh Yasir Qadhi. Muslims, lions in the masjid, kitty cats in the halls of academia. We're lions in the masjid. We're kitty cats in the halls of academia. That's true. It's a perfect description. Ash May said, is he saying by default a sheikh cannot equal academic? On this issue, I guess you can't be both on this issue, and so you have to switch your entire epistemology. Well, nice to see you three again. God bless. Yeah, thank you. Apostate of Allah says, how does that not make him a munafiq though? Oh, I'm sure that people would regard him as an apostate, as a heretic, as something based on this. And I'm sure, I haven't been following it because I've been traveling and so on, but I would guess that they are accusing him of being a heretic or being an apostate or something like that. But again, it's like, how do you accuse him of that? He's saying, hey, as long as I'm speaking from an Islamic perspective, the Hadith are as good as gold. But once I step into into a room with a scholar, yeah, I agree. We can't trust this stuff. Christians believe okay.
Not only munafiq, but they are calling him criminal.
Oh yeah, and what'd you say? Calling for his God to curse his keyboard and poor keyboard. It'll be funny if if he makes a video, it's like, sorry guys, I just spilt coffee all over my keyboard. It doesn't work anymore. They'll be, oh, you see, this is the proof. This is the proof. Allah's curse upon him. This is what you get for challenging us to Mubahala. You don't even know what a Mubahala, bro. Christians believe we live in God's presence in heaven. Why do Muslims accept that Allah wants nothing to do with them after death? Allah doesn't even want to be around his faithful. Oh, he'll be there, like lifting up his skirt and stuff like that. You got all that. Got that. All right, what do we want to check out next? Should we what do you think, Hatun? Should we go to Yasir Qadhi's response after he catches the backlash, or Adnan Rashid blasting him?
Let's help Yasir Qadhi. Let's first give him chance that he clarifies, and then we will see his clarification is not still enough.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So Yasir Qadhi said that, thought it was fine. He dared to speak the truth. He got blasted for it, and here's the thing: he thought he was smoothing things over by saying, "Yes, I'll just live a double life," but guess what? One of his lives was just affected by what he said, right? In other words, we're not sure you want you as our sheikh speaking at our event if you're saying this stuff can't really be defended and you just have to accept it all by blind faith. And therefore, we don't have the proof. There is no proof. There's zero proof. We don't want you saying that. We prefer lies. We prefer lies. And so that's what he heard. And so he had to try and rescue his reputation here. Let's see what we got. All right, so this is his clarification, everyone. He's going to fix the damage that he's done. Hadith science and the Isnad system is one of the most precise and rigorous tools of academic... academic? Okay, now we're back to lying Yasir Qadhi. So we talked about him having different hats. He's got the academic Yasir Qadhi, and then he's got the Sheikh Yasir Qadhi. But he also has the I'm speaking the truth today Yasir Qadhi versus the I'm lying because my followers are forcing me to lie Yasir Qadhi. And so this will be his attempt. Let's see. Hadith science and the Isnad system is one of the most precise and rigorous tools of academic verification. That's specifically what you said it's not. Academic verification in human history. It is unique to our civilization, and we have every right to be proud of that.
Gosh, what a weasel, man.
Yeah, it is. So now he's just saying that, hey, it's not persuasive to non-Muslims or something along those lines. That's all he's saying. No, that's not what you're saying, dude. This is why I brought up his original holes in the narrative interview. Think about what he was really saying. The academics were right. And this is the problem, right? It's Muslims who are basically saying, oh, we love the beautiful clothes of the emperor, and it's the non-Muslim academic saying the emperor's got no clothes. That's what he was saying. So he was clearly on the side of saying the academics are right and Muslims are wrong. And so now he's trying to, we've got this great system. But he says, it is, however, not always possible to use Islamic frameworks to prove matters to Western academics. Epistemology, the theory of how we know what is true, functions very differently in both spaces. As Muslims, we believe that ultimate truth comes from Allah. Western academia often relies on historical skepticism and does not accept the Prophet ﷺ said or Allah said as proof. As another example, we firmly believe that the companions were righteous and faithfully conveyed the message of the Prophet ﷺ. That belief is not shared by those outside our faith. The position of modern Western Hadith studies is that Isnad analysis in itself is insufficient to affirm Hadith as the preserved words of the Prophet. While the Ikma methodology, that's the Isnad Kum Matan analysis methodology, that's Isnad, that's the list of names that supposedly tells you how you got this, and then the Matan, that's the actual content or the story.
The text.
Yeah, and gosh, I don't want to have to explain this now, but general idea, that particular methodology, Isnad Kum Matan analysis methodology, that, gosh, this is tricky to say. It's basically how non-Muslim academics, I mean, Muslims could do the same thing if they wanted to defend it in a way that's going to be compelling to an academic, but non-Muslim academics, they've got all their hadiths, right? They've got the hadiths. Everyone grants that there's information in there. It's a bunch of information. How do you actually trace it back? Well, the idea is that you look at the isnad, because guess what? You can have like 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or more versions of a hadith. And those hadiths will have variations within the story, so the matan, and it will have variations in the isnad. In other words, you can have the same story that's transmitted in different ways. So what they'll do is they'll compare different versions of the same hadith, and they'll look for common links in the isnad. In other words, they'll look, if you say, hey, I got my version of the story from Abdullah, and this guy says, well, I got my version of the hadith from Shuaib, you then start tracing it back, and is there a common link? In other words, is there sort of a common ancestor? Did it all come from the same guy if you go back far enough and stuff? And they'll evaluate it there, and they'll take the different versions and see if there are common links, and see if it makes sense. If the story of how this information goes back, if it actually makes sense that this is an accurate story of how you got this information, or does it look like someone made it up at some point? So anyway, while the ICMA methodology partially validates many hadith, it's important to note that they don't treat hadith as definitive evidence in the way Sunni theology does. That is simply how their system works. We, on the other hand, have an alternative system and trust the academic methods developed by our scholars over the centuries. Notice he keeps saying academic now. You see that? He keeps saying academic when before he was drawing a distinction between the academic world and the Islamic world, but now he's saying academic. We have no inferiority complex. Why are all you guys freaking out? We don't need the academy to validate our religion. No, we can accept it by blind faith, even though we can't defend it. Our tradition stands firm on its own, with or without Western academic recognition. That being said, Western academia is not entirely without value, as it offers tools that can be useful when engaged on its own terms. However, our religion is not based on their tools and epistemology. The two paradigms are different, and that is a simple and uncontroversial fact. Believing Muslims in the academy need to understand this and navigate accordingly.
Did you notice the most important thing here? He said, our religion is not based.
Yeah, he said, we need to screenshot that and quote him on that. Our religion is not based. So guys, so here it's, hey, our method is great. It's just, the academy doesn't agree with us. Here's the thing, Yasir Qadhi. If you actually had a good historical methodology that can get you to the truth, you should be able to convince an academic, right? You should be able to say, hey, we have a good method for getting to the truth of what Muhammad said. Here it is. Why does no one, literally no one, according to you, agree with you that this is a good methodology who isn't already a Muslim? Why? If you have a good methodology, guess what? People come up with new methodologies all the time. The Isnad Kum Matan analysis, that's a methodology that scholars came up with. If you have a good methodology, why would you not be able to convince anyone of this methodology? That's kind of an issue. Let's scroll up and see.
Can I point out something? So he posted this on the 16th.
Uh-huh.
Video went up on 9th of July. And then he responds Quran talk. So first Quran talk kind of brought everyone's attention, it seems, on Twitter. And then that day he responded that. So for a whole week, he didn't know he said something that anyone might get upset about it.
Mm.
And since 16th of July, everyone is upset.
Gosh, so he'll seem courageous to admit this stuff, and then he just goes into complete coward mode. So those are two more hats of Sheikh Yasir Qadhi. We've got his sheikh hat versus his academic hat, and he changes those. And he's got the, well, I'll tell the truth now, but then I'll lie. And then we've got this one as well. But hey, let's see what he's posted since then. Oh, look, Netanyahu. What did I say, guys? What did I say? Anytime they get in trouble, they instantly start attacking the Islamophobes or the Jews or Hindutva.
The Yahud.
It's like clockwork. Hey, look, alhamdulillah, another victory for our epic masjid. What did I say? If you find yourself on the bad side of the ummah and they're complaining about you, you demonstrate your value. You say, but I'm so important, you need to look past this. So what do we have? I'm attacking the Jews. And now, look, I'm taking on the U.S. government to build epic masjid. Please show me how that's going to work, because it's just hilarious. Oh, there's more.
You keep saying demonstrate value. That's from the Dennis system.
Yep, that's the Dennis system. It's the dawah system. The Ummah just lost a giant. AP, is that the same kid that was he had a disease and then they claimed that it's the starvation? Is that the same?
Yes.
Oh, look at this. How can we allow this to happen? We're getting images and news in real time. Wasn't this from a long time ago?
Yes.
They're starving it to death in front of our eyes. This was a kid with a disease that they all said was starving.
This is a child with a condition that was difficult to treat, and that unfortunately died in Gaza. It was not a case of starvation. Mm-hmm. It was a disease.
And he's just posting that now, lying to his followers to show, you see, I'm going after Israel. And here, the bitter irony: the people of Gaza have electricity and access to the internet to live tweet with pictures of their starvation and updates regarding the death of loved ones. Yet there's hardly a whisper in mainstream media of this reality. On what planet? I can't go anywhere without having this thrown in my face. And it's, Sheikh Yasir Qadhi.
Nobody's talking about Gaza, man. No
one's talking about any of this. I haven't heard about it for months. Years even. No one talks about it 24 hours a day. And guess what? It wouldn't be an issue if you're just reporting factual information, but it end up being stuff like this, where you take a picture of a kid who died from a disease and you say he was starved to death by the Jews and so on. And this is how you have to what? Get out of the little quandary you find yourself in because you were honest for 4 more minutes of your life.
So he's honest about his belief for a little bit, and then he has to lie, and then he has to actually use false propaganda, and has to use a child with a condition in order to, has to use that child with a condition to lie about Israel and the Jews to distract from his own garbage.
Indeed. All right. Now let's check out what Adnan Rashid has. So Sheikh Yasir Qadhi has plenty of critics after all this stuff. And you have lots of guys who see this as an opportunity to prop themselves up by being the hero who takes down this guy. So here we have Adnan Rashid, Zionist professor. The perceived dichotomy. Let's follow up. What does he say here? I completely disagree with Dr. Yasir Qadhi here. I am a peer-reviewed academic in the field of history. I do not believe the Western historical critical method is completely credible or unbiased when it comes to Hadith sciences. I invite Mr. Qadhi for a dialogue on this. Wait, that's your standard for a methodology? Completely credible and unbiased? Is that what you think Hadith methodology is? You think it lives up to that? It's not biased? And it's completely credible? If it's completely credible, why couldn't you convince a non-Muslim historian that you guys are historical geniuses? You're the geniuses who figured out how to do history. Why? Why can't you convince anyone of that? They all think it's a joke. The perceived dichotomy between the two epistemologies is not necessarily true. There are many Western academics from varying Islamic history disciplines who use Hadith literature as supporting evidence in their works. To say nobody affirms Hadith in academy is untrue. No, he's talking about the methodology as a standard. That's the point. There are people who will accept Hadiths, but they're verifying the contents using historical principles. They don't just, it's in the Hadith, therefore it's true. This Muslim scholar said it's Sahih, therefore we accept it. They think that method is a total joke. Why? If you can fabricate a story, you can fabricate a list of names, which means you need to verify them on other grounds. And yes, there are historians who will verify hadiths on other grounds. But you're not contradicting what Yasir Qadhi said there, Adnan. So try to pay closer attention to what people are saying.
Using hadiths as supporting evidence doesn't mean that the historians in question or the academics in question accept the hadith sciences that Muslims use as totally authentic and totally reliable. So you can also use regular witness testimony as supporting evidence. That doesn't mean that you totally agree with it or that you totally trust it.
Hey, look at this. This is funny. This is like you know how like Sajid, I think he mentioned me, he mentions my name occasionally and stuff like that, but these guys never want to mention names. Look at this. Like we're all Voldemort or something like that. If you speak their name, I think it's probably more you don't want to mention the name because you don't want people going and looking us up and stuff like that, which is, that's strange. We're sitting here mentioning Yasir Qadhi and Adnan Rashid and all the, and Fareed and Sajid. Why? Well, we're not scared of people going and looking you guys up. Why do you guys act like, oh no, if I mention their name, a Muslim might look them up? And why would you be scared of that? They're just going to find out that we're Islamophobes and we're lying, right? Isn't that it? Yeah. Why are we not scared at all of sending everyone over to your stuff? We're sitting here reading your stuff right in front of you.
I think everybody should always look up Muhammad Hijab and Adnan al-Kikiju foremost. So,
absolutely. But look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Dr. Yasir Qadhi has apparently become a gift that keeps giving. Why would Islamophobes consider him a gift? Because he is, as are you, Adnan. So if you're going to use that as a criticism, you, Muhammad Hijab, the entire Dawah gang. Is it simply a poor choice of words on his part? No, it's that he was honest. That's why he's a gift that keeps on giving. He's been honest twice. In everything I've seen, he's been honest twice. And it's destroyed the ummah. Lack of knowledge, an inflated sense of self-importance. Well, that would kind of be a requirement for being a da'i. Or is it intentional? Or is it an intentional attempt to stir controversy? Ooh, now we get the conspiracies. But look at what he shares here. This is from me, but he chops my name off.
Can I point out something?
What's up?
Didn't he just said he's academic?
Yep.
Yeah. So what do you call in academia if they tell everyone that's what you said, but they don't give your name? If they are quoting you, but they are not using your name, they are just pretending it is their own idea stuff. What do you call
that would be plagiarism. But he is saying that we say this. He's just not identifying us by name, and so I would just call this cowardice. I would just call this straight up cowardice. But yeah, so he takes a screenshot of my tweet, but chops off my name. Where I said Sheikh Yasir Qadhi is the gift that keeps giving. Years ago, he obliterated the myth of the perfect preservation of the Quran in the infamous Holes in the Narrative interview. Now he's admitting that from an academic perspective, hadith methodology is a complete joke. All right, we all know that Adnan follows me carefully, but doesn't want to admit it.
He's a big fan.
Let's see. So he agrees with Dr. John Islam. Oxford University graduates are not qualified to evaluate isnads. Someone who has not participated in hadith transmission has no business commenting on the veracity of prophetic tradition. No, you non-Muslims must not be allowed to examine our methodology. Why? What are you guys scared of? They won't mention our names. They understand that this stuff cannot stand up to scrutiny. So you guys have no business talking about our stuff. Just keep your mouth shut. How are you going to convince us of anything? Can't be defended.
Well, they're not going after you to convince you, or they're not going after people who are thinking. They're not going to convince them. They're going after those like emotionally broken who are looking for like love jihad. They're looking love jihad victims.
Yeah. Adnan Rashid agrees and says, indeed, also Western academics have no consensus on how they must engage with the evidence for early Islam. That's right. They don't have a consensus. You have competing ideas and competing theories and stuff, and they wrestle with things and they try to come up with the best methodology. But they agree that your methodology sucks. So they're not sure exactly what there's no perfect methodology, right? You can dial up your skepticism, you can dial back your skepticism and so on. And different scholars are going to have different approaches and propose different methodologies. What scholars are doing, Adnan, is They're looking at sources like, let's say, Sahih al-Bukhari, and hey, we have a ton of hadiths in here. We have thousands of hadiths. The method that was used to verify these hadiths is complete garbage, but some of this information contained in Sahih al-Bukhari is more reliable than other material. How do we distinguish? And they come up with various approaches and so on. What they agree on is your method sucks and cannot be defended. Let's see what else.
Rude.
Let's see. Reading carefully, this essay changes nothing. Oh, that's him responding to Yasir Qadhi's defense of himself. Again, Dr. Qadhi does not identify the flaws, bias, and ignorance of Western academics. You guys getting this? Western academics are biased and ignorant, but Muslims aren't. What? Come on. Since the 19th century, Western Orientalists and later academics made serious blunders in understanding our sciences. Dr. Qadhi does not touch on that.
Dude, if the Western academics weren't biased and ignorant, they would be Muslims. So
Yes, of course, they would all just accept Islam. What is this? What is this? What is this? Okay. Anything else we need to see here, Hatun?
There is few. Let me see if I can pull it from here. Where he's telling people to cancel him because like their foundation is so strong. They are very confident in their religion, so he's calling Muslim world to cancel him. Let me share screen if I can.
But by the way, notice Rashid. He's blasting away at Shias here. Blasting away at Shias here. Oh, here we go. Is this one?
Yeah.
Yasir Qadhi. You don't even know his name, Adnan. How are you going to comment on him? You don't even know his name. Yasir Qadhi? Who's that? I don't even know who he's talking about here.
It's a Hebrew name here.
Yasir Qadhi must not be platformed. Whoa. He's saying blacklist this dude. Yasir Qadhi must not be platformed by the Muslim community. He is a confused individual who continues to poke established Islamic matters by his poor choice of words. That wasn't poor choice of words. That was a burst of 4 minutes of honesty.
Hey, Adnan Rashid, leave Yasir Qadhi alone. We all love him. We want to hear more from him.
He's our hero. He's the only one we trust anymore. We love Yasir Qadhi.
We want to hear him speak about more Islamic matters, especially pertaining to the historicity and reliability of Islamic texts and traditions. I want to hear more of him. We love him. How dare you criticize him?
Look at this. He is a darling of the Islamophobia industry for this reason. He's a darling of the Islamophobia industry because in 2 interviews ever, he was honest. And 2 instances of honesty from a Muslim scholar is enough to send you all into full panic mode. That's how obsessed you guys are with lies. The mere thought of someone telling the truth about the Quran or the Hadith sends you into full panic mode. That tells us a lot about your religion. He is a darling of the Islamophobia industry for this reason. We don't need him. There are other PhD scholars.
He is my darling.
Oh, wait.
He says, Qadhi is my darling.
Oh, look, hey, he acknowledges the typo. The typo in the name was an error, not deliberate. I meant to write Yasir, not Yair. It was a genuine mistake. Just clarifying.
What?
What is this, man? No one cares, man.
Why is he trying so hard to tell people that it's the mistake?
Wow. So Yasir, this is Adnan Rashid, popular Muslim da'i, not as popular as Yasir Qadhi, but pretty popular, saying the Muslim community must no longer platform this guy.
I disagree.
Yeah, we disagree. We want the Ummah to platform him day and night. Forever. What do you think about that, Adnan?
Solid point.
Wow. These are crazy times.
Yeah, Adnan, I'm sure it was a mistake. Sure, you totally didn't.
Oopsie.
Sure, it was a mistake. Right. You clearly deliberately called him Yair. That was clearly on purpose, man.
I would like to also point out something. Not only they are trying to deplatform him, they are already on Twitter. Let me share screen. They are already on Twitter blurring him. I find this very heartbreaking.
Blurring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen?
Huh? Want me to put
Are
your
you-
screen up?
Yeah.
There we go.
See, they blurred him.
So hang on. They're doing like they blur out our names so that Muslims can't look us up, but now they don't want we will cover up your face. We will treat you like a woman who's uncovered. What do we do with the woman who's not wearing a hijab? We cover her face. And now we'll treat you like that. We're treating you like one of our hotel wives. Oh my goodness. What is this religion? What is this religion, guys?
It's called
Creepy,
Islam.
creepy. Creepy, weird, wild stuff.
What a religion, man.
Oh boy. Take a couple of super chats here. What's up?
I was going to ask, do you want it to get more disturbing?
What? What do you got?
Abu Musad's video where Allah destroys Yasir Qadhi's keyboard.
Oh, it's a video?
Yeah.
No, I download videos that I'm going to play, but you can just describe it.
It's in a video. He's like praying to Allah, begging Allah to destroy Yasir Qadhi, take him from the dawah, take him away from dawah community. He's criminal now. Destroy even his pen, destroy even his keyboard.
Yeah, yes.
Laughing, I don't know what that's.
Send me that. I think I'm going to want to clip that. Send me that link because that's going to be funny stuff.
Ya Allah, destroy Yasir Qadhi's keyboard. Ya Allah.
Wow. These are good times. On an iPhone, the do not disturb setting is represented by a half moon. Muhammad also did not want to be disturbed. This is revelation. Dawah crew, take notes.
That's a good point.
Hey, that's funny. Take notes, guys. Ash says, D-Wood, you misunderstood. He's not saying beat your wife like you attack unbeliever. He's saying attack the unbeliever the soft way you beat your wife. You see? That would be the other way.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Would be the other way to interpret this. It is funny in Christianity. The more you study, the more its truth is revealed. On the other hand, the contrary happened in Islam. Yeah, and that's a good point for just for the ill-informed atheists who've never really studied anything, but will still go around saying, "Oh, but you know, how come you see the flaws in Islam, but you cannot see the flaws in Christianity? If you examined Christianity critically like you do Islam, you would reject it." I did examine Christianity, and that's the difference. You take a Muslim argument like perfect preservation of the Quran. You spend 5 minutes of actually looking into that. It's complete nonsense. If you investigate something like the resurrection of Jesus, you'll suddenly be surprised that there is a ton of historical foundation there. So, yep, totally different.
It's pretty rude.
AP, your speech at Turning Point USA was great. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Everyone, follow my YouTube channel. Let me just say that for 12 minutes straight. This is the great Skibibi, the Islamic Schism 2025. Yeah, they're dividing over this stuff. Yasir Qadhi made a hole. Al-Zutz made it bigger. What's wrong with people, man? The perfect video. Yeah, I saw someone earlier say Yasir Qadhi al-Zutted the holes in the narrative or something like that. Anyway, the perfect video to add in a collage of Islam destroyed is Wasim Yusuf, men of religion hide 90% of the issues. At the end, he says it's just business, a Quran quote of chapter 61:10, a commerce or exchange. I'm not sure exactly what this is referring to. I'm going to screenshot this because it might be interesting. Let's see. Super chat, no comment, but thank you. Great to see powerful Christian minds. Oh, hi, AP. Yes, Christians and then
hey.
a cat human. We don't need truth to be Muslim. We don't need truth to be Muslim. I'll believe. He said believe, but he's emphasizing the lie. I'm not sure how to pronounce that while reading it. We believe Anyway, stupid Christians always middling with our lies and telling the truth. How can I run and hide in darkness if you expose it all the time? That is a good point. So I mentioned earlier that, all the stuff we were saying 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we were called liars. And it turned out we were right about all of it. And your guys were the ones who were lying. Muslims, don't you find it odd that to get the truth, you have to go to Christians? Like, we're the ones who will tell you the truth. And your guys, you see it from the dawah community, they lose their mind. We have to keep lying. How dare you speak the truth for 5 minutes? That should tell you all you need to know. I wouldn't expect this from Adnan Rashid. He was honest enough to admit how much worse the IR of Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran, is than Israel in his video. Did he? That's interesting.
He might have, because he really hates the Shia. And yeah, did he, Hatun?
I don't know, but he talks against Shias quite often.
He does not like Shias.
He hates Shia. Truly hates them.
What about the unity of the Ummah, man? Supermarket tabloid sensationalism like the Hadith takes known or popular names and events, guts their substance, and stuffs them with fabricated spectacle to sell a cult disguised as truth.
That's pretty rude.
Yeah, that's Islamophobic. True, but Islamophobic. You guys have pretty sharp minds. I'm looking for a way to sharpen my mind and make my thinking stronger. Do you all have any suggestions?
I wouldn't use knives.
Unless it's a tiny precision one like this.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it either. What do you recommend, David?
What do you recommend? What's a sharper mind?
You are the sharp mind here, man. We're just dummies sitting here, so.
You don't have to take like an entire logic course or anything like that, but get something on like the basics of logic, like even a good article on some of the most. I've been wanting for years to make to make like a little video series on, not on all of logic, but on the issues that keep coming up, the most common fallacies and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, learn some basics like argument forms and common fallacies, and then work on spotting them. Whenever people are giving an argument, like figure out what argument form are they using? Is it valid or invalid? Is there a fallacy here and stuff like that? And get in that practice. Would be good.
By the way, when I said we are dummies, I was speaking of myself only.
No, you're calling Hatun a dummy.
Not including Hatun.
I'm only the
No, I was saying, so you, as in plural, you are sharp. And we, when I was saying we are dummies, I was speaking of myself in plural form. So
You mean royal we?
The royal
Yeah.
we. Yep. People are already saying it. The royal we.
Yeah.
Good job, AP.
thank you.
Okay, so let's check out what Sean Anthony had to say here. You sent me this, didn't you, Hatun?
I did send you a message about Sean Anthony.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering how I found that. So yeah, Hatun sent me this earlier. So Sean Anthony is a non-Muslim Islamic studies, a non-Muslim academic professor of Islamic studies, I think at Ohio State. But I remember him for recently Inspiring Philosophy made a video about the Islamic dilemma, and then Khalil responded, "This has all been debunked," and Sean Anthony responded, "Actually, seems like a pretty solid argument." So that's actually funny that you had an academic granting that the Islamic dilemma is a pretty solid argument. Let's see. So Sean Anthony, this is Sean Anthony, again, a non-Muslim academic. And he says this: "My 2 cents on the Hadith scholarship versus secular scholarship discourse. One, Matsky was mistaken to speak of the authenticity of the Hadith corpus, inasmuch as readers confused how he used authenticity with how Hadith scholarship uses words like Sahih, Hasan, etc. So, this is actually similar to how textual critics speak of corruption. Any textual variant, even a spelling difference, is corruption. They call that corruption. When Muslims see in a book on textual criticism about the Bible, the word corruption, they say, you see, even scholars grant that it's corrupt, when the entire book can be about how reliable and well-preserved the Bible is. They just see the word corruption and they think, oh, this is what it means. And they don't understand what it means in an academic sense. It's the same thing with authenticity. How Matsky is using it is not, like he'll say authentic, and a Muslim will say, you see, he's granting the authenticity of the Hadith. That's not what he means. That's not what he means. So let's go ahead and check this out. He says, authentic for him means not forged by the compiler or tradent. That's the person who passes it on. Authentic does not equal historical veracity. Matsky ran into this problem repeatedly, but the toothpaste couldn't be put back into the tube. ICMA, that's again, Isnad Kum Matan Analysis, aims at dating, not verifying traditions. See his statement from our book. I don't want to click on that because it will take me off the page, but let me see if I can get it up to just read it over here. Where is this? Go ahead and comment on this, AP, while I find this and pull it up.
Well, I was going to say that we can't really accept Sean Anthony's opinion here because Adnan Rashid already established very clearly that any non-Muslim academic, non-Muslim academic that comments on this is ignorant and biased. So therefore, we have to naturally conclude by the great words of the great Adnan Rashid that Sean Anthony is, of course, ignorant and biased. So therefore, anything Sean Anthony says is to be accepted as false.
Of course, that's while Sean Anthony is teaching in Ohio University, Adnan is on WhatsApp groups helping Muslims. Helping Muslims to figure out how to do sex marriages in hotels or have to cover up. Yeah.
You're doing Adnan, you suck at criticizing Yasir Qadhi here, but you're doing a bang up job on all the helping your followers get away with muta. Although no, that's what Shia does, which is a misyar, which is even worse. So Sean, by the way, guys, the reason he's bringing up Matsky here is because Yasir Qadhi referred to Matsky, who's a non-Muslim Hadith scholar, but he referred to Matsky and said, okay, even Matsky would only grant this, and then other Muslims responded to him, oh, but he says authentic. So you see, Matsky does grant that the Hadith are authentic, and Sean Anthony is responding to that. He's responding to that. What authentic means for these scholars is not what Muslims see. So anyway, that quotation that he has there, I clicked on it. It says, yet Berg's assumption that in so doing, they believe that they have conclusively shown that hadiths are largely authentic is wrong. I do not believe that. I only assume that many traditions found in the extant compilations were not invented by the compilers, but have a history, including forgeries, which can be retraced to a certain point in time. So it sounds like he's using authentic as meaning the person, like Bukhari, did not invent it. It has some sort of history that goes back before him. So it's not something that Bukhari is inventing. That's how he's using the term authentic. And I would agree that is not a good way to use it. It's bound to be misunderstood by anyone who's not familiar with how you're using the terms. It's the same thing with corruption among textual critics. They don't understand, they understand how they're using the word, but you should probably not use the word if anyone who's not familiar with your terminology is going to think you mean something else. But he says, the main aim of my approach is dating traditions. The fact that, for example, a hadith of the Prophet can be dated to the second half of the 1st or 7th century does not mean that it is authentic in the sense that it really goes back to him in the form preserved, or that it reflects accurately what really happened. So, guys, he just said it there. Let me read that again and break it down. He says that the way he's using it, he says, the fact that a hadith of the Prophet can be dated to the second half of the 1st Islamic century does not mean that it is authentic in the sense that it really goes back to him, right? In the form preserved, or that it reflects accurately what really happened. So when I use authentic, I don't mean in the sense that this is what really happened, or that it actually goes back to Muhammad, or that it actually is in the correct form, in which he's saying, I don't mean that. And yet that's what Muslims are using to correct Yasir Qadhi. They're saying, he says authentic. And Motsky himself says, I don't mean what you mean by authentic, and they're still using it. And so Sean Anthony here actually corrects them on this. Let's see what else. From my outsider perspective, Muslim Hadith scholarship really aims at achieving one end: determining whether or not any given report meets the criteria to be regarded as authoritative for one's deen. The methods used by Muslims to arrive at these criteria and conclusions are sophisticated and demand a high erudition, but they are parochial all the same. They are of no benefit to the secular academy in terms of methods, and they are useless for doing history of philology as such. Ikma is merely a bespoke. Does he mean bespoke? I'm guessing he means bespoke. That means like made for that purpose. Adaptation of historical and philological methods attuned to working with a specific corpus. Muslim Hadith scholarship is parochial insofar as it offers no benefit for historians studying U.S. history, Chinese history, prehistoric history, etc. So, yeah, Sajid, what's he saying? He's saying, you guys came up with your method that you use. Do not apply that to anyone else. It's useless to anyone else. And yet, Sajid will say, but you don't have the isnad. The method is narrow, too fideistic, meaning just faith-based, which is exactly what Yasir Qadhi said, and insufficiently comparative. With that being said, the epistemological debates over hadith and their status as knowledge are extremely interesting for scholars who study the philosophy of history or historiography, and should be more widely known. 3, one should distinguish between different types of claims. Oh, this is actually good. One should distinguish between different types of claims. A, here's one type of claim. The hadith preserve an early record of Muslim beliefs and practices. I agree. The hadith preserve an early record of Muslim beliefs and practices. B, the hadith preserve in broad outline the events of the first Islamic century, which is the 7th century for our calendar. So that's different. So the first one is the hadith, they preserve a record of things Muslims believe. That I would regard as pretty darn indisputable. The second one is they preserve in broad outline, so kind of in general, the events of the first Islamic century. Compare that with C, the hadith preserve what early Muslims believed Muhammad taught. Or D, the hadith preserve the precise wordings of the Prophet's teaching and accurate, granular descriptions of his behavior. So he's saying when you're talking about trusting the hadith, you could be talking about, this is a record of Muslim beliefs and practices. But you could be saying one of these other things. Like, Muslims are claiming D. Muslims are claiming D. The hadith preserve the precise wordings of the Prophet's teaching and accurate, granular descriptions of his behavior. He says, I think most secular scholars believe in A through B, and many might be convinced of C. But arriving at D, is a lost cause. He's saying, and that's exactly what Yasir Qadhi said. That's exactly what Yasir Qadhi said. Showing people that this is actually what Muhammad said, you cannot do it. It's just two different methodologies. And this is an Islamic studies professor saying, you're not going to do it, guys. We've been through all of this. We've seen everything you have. There's no way you're going to convince us that we got a list of names is this great methodology. Give it up. The judgment of a secular scholar on the historicity of a hadith should probably have no bearing on what someone who follows a religious tradition believes. Little's analysis, that's Joshua Little, and judgment about Hisham ibn Urwa and Aisha's age at marriage makes for compelling reading. So Joshua Little argued that we don't actually know how old Aisha was, and you can't say she was 9. And there are Muslims who actually use that. You see, you can't say she was 9. You can't call Muhammad a pedophile anymore. Ha. But what he's actually saying is the hadith are garbage and they can't be trusted. And if they can't be trusted in general, then you can't trust them when they talk about the age of Aisha. The judgment of a secular scholar on the historicity of Hadith should probably have no bearing on what someone little's analysis plus judgment about Hisham Ibn Urwa they makes for a compelling reading as an account of the historical evolution of a tradition. But if one accepts Hisham's probity or authority, then the fact that he's a bottleneck is irrelevant to the authority of his reports within one's tradition. But I admit that I'm probably overstepping here. So what he's saying there, guys, is what you can do using the Isnad Kum Matn analysis is you can trace it back. You can trace the story back to Hisham. That still doesn't mean that it's authentic. But you could you could think Hisham knows what he's talking about and is speaking the truth, in which case, okay, you would trust him on that. Or you could think he made it up. So all you're doing is sort of tracing it back to someone who you have a good idea that it came from that person. Do you trust the person or not? He says, but I admit that I'm probably overstepping here. 5, those who dogpile Yasir Qadhi tend to exploit his prominence to gain attention and status for themselves. This includes the non-Muslim polemicists. In other words, Adnan Rashid and all the dawah guys who are flipping out right now, Fareed, all these guys, they're using his prominence to gain attention or status for themselves. And we're using his status to get attention for ourselves. That could kind of be true in the sense that he's a big name, Sean Anthony. But I mean, at the end of the day, when we see Yasir Qadhi admit that there are all these problems in the hadith, we draw attention to it because it's important. And when Muslims flip out about it, it's not just because they want attention. They do want attention, but the main reason is they understand that this would be massively damaging to the Muslim community. So just we are sincere when we're discussing this stuff. This is a serious issue that has serious ramifications for the Muslim community. What he's saying is an obvious truth. The methods of hadith scholars are not relevant to or accepted by scholars of history and philology who work in the secular academy. And since Muslims are students in, scholars of, and even patrons to the secular academy, they will encounter secular approaches to Islamic history and culture that necessarily, by virtue of methods and assumptions, differ from those found within their faith community. So here it sounds like he's just saying Yasir Qadhi is trying to warn Muslims who go into the secular academy that they're going to encounter things that are very, very different from what they're told in Islam. One can put one's head in the ground like an ostrich and ignore this. One can withdraw from these institutions or seek to delegitimize them, but why participate in them then? Or one can beat one's chest with that performative machismo beloved of so many online and proclaim the superiority and grandeur of the Islamic tradition, etc. All of this human peacocking doesn't amount to much in the end. I like Yasir Qadhi's approach, as I understand it. Have confidence in the intellectual resources of your tradition and proceed with confidence that it has the ability to engage with other approaches as an equal, but know that doing so might transform one's own tradition in unforeseen ways and requires a great deal of work and effort. Well, that's a nice concluding thought. That is not the outcome of this. He just wreaked havoc on basic Islamic belief, which is why they're declaring war on him. So anyway, wild stuff.
No, once, I can't remember the order, but when Yasir Qadhi kind of tried to unpack himself what he really meant a week after his conversation, there is this Twitter account, Cure Depression or something. No one kind of knew what the account was. Today, your brother in Christ was thinking probably this is Farid's fake account or something. So Farid made a video using that tweet, which was respond to Yasir Qadhi, correcting him regarding the Motske. And everyone is using that tweet now as kind of their sources how Motske was correct. And I think that's why Sean Anthony is using him as well, kind of unpacking what he meant.
Responding to those guys.
Yeah.
I actually have Fareed's video. It's already getting late, so we probably don't want to go through much of it. Let's go ahead and check out what Fareed is, since he's one of the guys who's. We'll have to wait for Sajid to post, but here we have. Let's check out Fareed.
Academy, we have a very skeptical approach to the Hadith corpus and its ability to tell us anything really about the Prophet and actually what he did and said, which appears to be diametrically opposed.
Look, Fareed blurred her out, but didn't blur out Yasir Qadhi, but now they're even blurring out Yasir Qadhi like some common woman.
The Salafi theology.
What's that?
He put holes in Yasir Qadhi's on the thumbnail, so there's no need to do that.
Oh yeah, I saw people saying they thought that could be interpreted as a threat. He made holes in the narrative, but he put a bunch of holes in Yasir Qadhi, and people are saying that could be a threat.
Cool emphasis on the Hadith canon. How do you think this sort of academic scholarship and also its increasing accessibility to lay believers will affect or influence the continued development of Salafi or post-Salafi thought?
That is a very difficult question because it's very sensitive.
But go ahead and answer it anyway, Yasir Qadhi. What could go wrong?
Because there's no easy answer.
And I don't want to answer
we are
it.
witnessing...
I don't want to say anything in public, but I will say it anyway.
This should never be spoken in public.
This in lifetime.
How do you not learn your lesson from 5 years ago? Like, seriously, how did you not learn your lesson? Shut it down. Better yet, if you're going to be interviewed, just say, under no circumstances do you ask me about this.
It's a very difficult question.
Very difficult.
And it is a question that I myself am grappling with.
And all I've concluded is that the standard narrative about the Hadith has holes in it. That's all I'm going to say. Please don't make me say anymore.
At a personal level, at a believing level, and as an academic, and as a preacher and teacher.
No. That's not how you friggin' answer the question, Ya Yasir.
You just say that's not how you freaking answer it. That's not how you freaking answer it. Oh, such strong language from Fareed.
We have a very skeptical approach to...
Oh, look what he did. He put himself on the bottom screen, so he's going to show how he would answer it. This is actually good. We're going to probably disagree with everything Fareed says, but I like this approach. Here's how I would answer it.
Hadith corpus and its ability to tell us anything really about the Prophet and actually what he did and said.
Who are we referring to in the first place? Are we referring to like the clowns that dismiss the existence of Zir bin Hubaysh and Nafi' and Hisham bin Hakim? Are those the folks that we're referring to? The conspiracy theorists, revisionists? Because
Yasir Qadhi said no one at the academic level, Fareed. So he's not talking about like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. He's saying, yeah, that would include them and it would include everyone else.
if that's the case, then you don't even need to refute them because other academics have refuted them.
Not on the reliability of the Hadith, Fareed. I don't know what you're talking about, man.
How do you think this sort of academic scholarship and also its increasing accessibility to lay believers will affect or influence the continued development of Salafi or post-Salafi thought?
Now you see, it will not have any effect at all because the lay Muslim doesn't read academic articles put out by Western academics.
Are you drunk, Fareed? It will not affect. Why are you guys in panic mode? It will not affect. They don't care about any of this stuff.
Let me make a video about it.
Yeah, they're never going to hear any of this. Oh, by the way, everyone hearing my video where I'm talking about this? Oh, boy. This is funny. It will never affect them because they will never find out about this.
And those with a background in Hadith sciences, they're not fooled by the garbage that the skeptical Western academics put out.
Except Yasir, of course. He's actually being funny here, man. Oh, boy. Okay.
You see, Yasir, that's how you answer these questions.
That's how you answer the questions, Yasir. You just lie. That's it. Yasir, no, what you do is you give the standard narrative. Just stick with the standard narrative, even in spite of all the holes. Just stick with the standard narrative. That's what Fareed's saying. And matter of fact, I mean, that's the same thing Fareed did with the holes in the narrative interview. Keep in mind, Fareed was not saying no textual variants. Fareed acknowledges that there are textual variants and so on. I think he believes that they all somehow go back to Muhammad and that they go through you could trace them back to the Ahruf and something like that. That's the standard narrative among students of knowledge, right? That we think we can explain all this in a way that still confirms the perfect preservation of the Quran. It's just all these variants somehow go back to Muhammad or something like that. So that's the standard narrative. We can account for these variants and variations in terms of ahruf and the Uthmanic recension and different qira'at and so on. And this all works together. That's what Yasir Qadhi was saying. The standard narrative has holes in it. Like, you would get laughed out of the room, Fareed, if you actually said that among academics. And that was your explanation for all these tens of thousands of textual variants. Oh yeah, they all go back to Muhammad. Okay, you go ahead and believe that. You go ahead and believe that, but you have no business in the scholarly realm.
And look at you. You look miserable. You look.
What? Why?
He put. Oh. Hang on. Let me back this. Look at you. You look miserable.
Why is he going down this road? No, that's so dumb.
Yeah, but it's funny. Hang on. Okay, let's play that again.
And those with a background in hadith sciences, they're not fooled by the garbage that the skeptical Western academics put out. You see, Yasir, that's how you answer these questions. And look at you. You look miserable. You look like someone stole your lunch money. Who bullied you, bro?
That's so messed up, man.
Fareed's actually funny. I've seen him be funny a couple times, but I thought he was high. There's one where he's talking to me and he starts like giggling and stuff, but he sounded like he was high. So I thought he was just like he smoked a bunch of weed and that's why he was funny. Here he sounds like himself, but he's being funny. So okay.
Okay, if people are living in North Africa or Middle East, so they are having hashish, not beats, but hashish.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I thought he was
drinking that tea.
Yep. He's chewing on khat and drinking on some stuff and got the hashish and yeah, who knows what else, but all right.
That is a very difficult question because it's very sensitive and because there's no easy answer.
Have some shame, man. Just
have some shame. Oh gosh, I might want to watch this. What?
Fareed is actually the one who answers such questions properly. Yeah, we know that Yasir Qadhi could have just simply given a very, very short answer to this question. He could have said it is a metaphysical matter. That's what he could have said.
This is the closest I've come to. It's the closest I've come to crying in a very long time, Fareed. Thank you. Have some shame.
That is a very difficult question because it's very sensitive and because there's no easy answer.
have some shame, man. Just say you're ignorant to the subject. Tell them to ask someone else. And by the way, despite being so sad and miskeen and don't have an answer, this is what he says next.
I just wanted to watch it. I just wanted to watch like 2 minutes to see him complain, but he's being hilarious enough that, oh boy, now we got to keep this up.
There is no, now I hope there is, but as of yet, as somebody who's my undergraduate was in the College of Hadith. So I specialized, and it is said, and I'm not just saying because I'm a graduate, this was the well-known reality, that the College of Hadith in the University of Medina in the 90s and the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they've changed it now. It was considered to be the most advanced study of Hadith at the undergraduate level in the entire world. And as somebody who went through that and has talked to other people from other institutes, I would very much agree with that, the amount of studying that we did. So what I'm trying to say is I've studied hadith in...
Oh, this is good. Hey, he's pulling rank. Hey, I know my stuff. I've got all the credentials.
I'm an expert.
out. I have ijazat more than I do. I forgot how many I have.
After all this, after this film that you made, you're gonna boast your credentials. Yeah, boast your credentials when you're doing something good. Not when you're miskeen and the ummah is in danger and we have no answers to the questions.
Oh my goodness, man! Look at him though. He looks genuinely funny and amused. Oh boy! Even though we know he's in full panic mode. Oh gosh, this is funny, Fareed. You're doing a bang up job, Fareed. All your videos should be like this, man.
And there's something I personally struggle with. By the way, I'm the best scholar ever. I got the highest grades, and everyone was jelly of me.
That's good.
That's not the time to boast.
He said everyone was jelly on me. Oh gosh, man, Fareed, you're crushing it, man.
I forgot how many I have.
After all this, after this film that you made, you're gonna boast your credentials. Yeah, boast your credentials when you're doing something good. Not when you're miskeen and the ummah is in danger and we have no answers to the questions. And there's something I personally struggle with. By the way, I'm the best scholar ever. I got the highest grades, and everyone was jelly of me. That's not the time to boast.
Oh gosh, man, Fareed, dude. I'm gonna start watching your video. If you make all your videos, I don't know. I only watch it when it's something like relevant to us and you respond to something. But anyway, if all your videos are like this, man, I'll watch your videos.
Credentials. Shuf, I'll tell you something, Yasser. When you mention I'm from Medina University, you're bringing down the whole establishment because they weren't able to prepare you for the masakin there in Western academia.
If you believe in the, that
gosh.
the Sunnah has been preserved by the Hadith, you're going to have to follow a certain epistemology, a certain paradigm. And if you are, like, as you're aware, and you're an academic channel, right? You're well aware. Nobody in the academy affirms the Muslim Sunni science of Hadith.
You get that?
This is
Nobody.
true.
Yeah. How are you going to respond to that, Fareed? I'm guessing by misunderstanding or misrepresenting something, huh?
Nobody.
If this was like completely accurate, then this would be highlighted as proof against Western academia.
They discredited that. I'm just...
Whoa, he said, did you catch that? If Western academia actually said the Hadith methodology is totally screwed up and can't be trusted, this would be a condemnation of Western academia because they don't accept our great Hadith methodology that a bunch of idiots invented.
He said this would be proof against Western academia. So what he's doing here is he's actually he treats the so-called ignorance of that it's called Hadith science. So the so-called Hadith science, which is complete ignorance, he treats that as total proof. He presumes that it is absolutely true, and that you shouldn't doubt it, that you shouldn't consider it, not entirely reliable. If you do consider it not entirely reliable, then this is proof that you are not a reliable scholar from his Islamic perspective. That is basically what he's doing here.
I'm just being factual. I'm describing. I'm not saying which one is right or wrong. I'm just saying the max you'll get, like Harold Motsky and others are going to say, well, we can say that some hadith definitely go back to some tabi'un.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the max you can say.
Shuf Yasser, this is an account on Twitter called Cur Depression. Dude's got a manga profile pic. Now he's gonna give you a quick little lesson here.
Wait, I thought he was doing that as a joke. But he's actually quoting. I thought he was saying, because he just said, oh man, he was just saying how he looked miserable and depressed. And so I thought he was just sending him to this manga depression site, but he's actually quoting it. Hang on.
By the way, for those not familiar, the tabi'un would be the second generation.
That's the second generation. Yeah. You have the Sahaba. You got the companions. And then you got the people who followed the next generation after the companions.
The max you can say.
Sheikh Yasir, this is an account on Twitter called Cur Depression. Dude's got a manga profile pic.
Hey, look, and follows you. So the Cur Depression follows Fareed.
Now he's gonna
So you know Cur Depression is has really high standards.
give you a quick little lesson here. Ali says, the max you will get is someone like Motsky saying some hadith definitely go back to some tabi'un, seemingly unaware that Motsky has argued that there is material historical to the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, as well as Ibn Abbas.
Hang on. First of all, that would not contradict even what Yasir Qadhi said, right? You have people, again, we've been through this already. You have people who reject hadith methodology, but who will still take that methodology and apply historical principles to it. They apply historical principles to the sources and then think that they can conclude various things and so on. So this is not Motsky accepting your historical methodology. It's Motsky taking your like ridiculous sources with your stupid methodology and saying, you know what? We still have ways of taking so guys, just keep in mind, you could be talking to a complete liar, right? You could be talking to a complete liar and still learn true things from the complete liar. And you have principles for that, something like the principle of embarrassment. If a guy's a liar, but he admits something that would actually hurt his case, chances are he admitted something that's true. Why would he make that up? And so there are historical principles even for sifting through unreliable information and getting to reliable material. So this is not refuting.
There is material historical to the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, as well as Ibn Abbas. Motsky says it is possible to defend the thesis that until the opposite is proved, the traditions transmitted by Ibn Jurayj from Ata from Ibn Abbas may be regarded as reliable transmissions of the latter. Guys, this is just one isnad. This is just one strand. Yasir Motsky was definitely one of the better academics. He was sanguine towards hadith. He wasn't one of those from the skeptical camp. And he utilized methodologies like that you find among classical proper hadith scholars like Ali bin Madini. He utilized the same methodology in order to determine that the narrator is actually reliable.
No, he uses your hadiths. He uses the isnads to compare them and try to figure out where they originate. How far can you trace them back? That's not the same as him using your methodology. Right? I mean, again, he's using the isnads, not the way you use the isnads, not the way you use the isnads. You use the isnad, hey, here's a list of names, and I trust all these people on here. So you see, the hadith is as good as gold. That's not how he's using it. He's saying, okay, if Bukhari reports a hadith, if Bukhari includes a hadith in his collection, then Bukhari could have invented it. He could have just fabricated it, or it goes back to someone before Bukhari. If it goes back to before Bukhari, how do we know how far this goes back, or how far can we trust it, or something like that, as far as something that wasn't coming from him? Well, you can have different hadiths with different isnad chains and so on, and you have differences in the story, and so you can kind of put all that information together and try to trace it back earlier. And so, dude, that's not your methodology. That's not your methodology, dude. In other words, if you said to Motsky, look, here's a list of names, and we affirm that every person on this name was a reliable transmitter, he would say, I do not care. Get that nonsense out of my face. If you say, hey, I have multiple sources and they're independent, they got different lists of names and stuff, and they can trace back, and we've got common links and so on, then he's interested, because you can kind of say, what's the best explanation for the origin of the story when we have all of this on it?
Now, what's really sad is, Motsky, who was a non-Muslim, does a better job than you'll ever do in this field. By the way, yesterday, not really giving me too much to work with here, but when we're talking about a few academics who have attributed some reports to the Tabi'een, this is the extreme, the extreme skeptical
Extremely
academics
bad for you.
like Schacht and Yonbol. That's what they did, like يعني even Shacht and Yombol would attribute reports to folks like Az-Zuhri, who was a tabi'i. So this is not something that like the sanguine pro-hadith scholars in academia would do. This is the skeptics would do this.
Skeptics would. I'm trying to think of a way around it. Yasir Qadhi's point is that no one at the academic level accepts your methodology. Guess what? He's right. So what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Did want to take just a quick glance at what a Hadith scholar says. We've been through this. We've looked at this passage numerous times. And why did I look at this? Why did we ever look at this? Because Muslims started using it to respond to criticisms of Muhammad's relationship with Aisha. And they said, look, even this Hadith scholar says that Muhammad never had sex with a 9-year-old girl, or that we can't know her age. And you look at what he actually said, is because he says you can't trust the Hadith at all. Well, you can apply historical principles and get to some reliable information, but in general, you have to approach them with extreme skepticism, because you're dealing with some seriously unreliable material here. Let me see, get this here. Okay, so this is Joshua Little, and he's got this after his discussion of what various Muslim and non-Muslim Hadith scholars have claimed and so on. And so here's the method. That Hadith are unreliable. That any given matan, again, that's the story part of the Hadith, that any given matan cannot be taken at face value as an accurate datum from the first Islamic century, and that any given isnad cannot be taken at face value as an accurate record of a matan's provenance, cannot be seriously contested for multiple reasons. He's saying you can't take this stuff seriously, and there are multiple reasons. Firstly, there is an overwhelming prior probability based upon the ubiquity of fabrication and pseudepigraphy in late antique and medieval religio-historical pagan, Jewish, and Christian ascriptions. Namely, he's saying, during this time, everyone's making stuff up. So why would we think that, oh no, these guys, these Muslim guys, they're as good as gold? Why would you think that? Especially when we know they were fabricating stories left and right. Secondly, there is the high frequency of contradictions within the Hadith corpus, which necessitates the occurrence of a huge amount of fabrication, interpolation, and or mutation, and therefore skepticism towards any given Hadith. Thirdly, there is the ubiquity of fabrication and interpolation, both reported and demonstrable, in the Hadith corpus, which again casts doubt upon the rest of the corpus. Fourthly, there is the rapid, extreme mutation and growth of reports that evidently took place over the course of a century or more of oral transmission, which means that any given matan, regardless of the isnad, is likely at best heavily distorted and at worst obliterated beyond its original form. Fifthly, there is the belated emergence of Hadith as a genre and corpus, meaning this methodology came about later, largely during the 8th and 9th centuries CE, which straightforwardly precludes the authenticity of most ascriptions to the 7th century. In other words, if the methodology of I got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, and here's how we verify that these guys are reliable, if that's a later methodology, then when you get a Hadith that says I got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, all the way back to Muhammad, it's all these trustworthy guys, like, how do you take that seriously? The method had not been invented yet. It hadn't been invented yet. So how are people for all these generations, how are they accurately using the methodology that had not been invented yet? It makes zero sense. And here's what I would say to you, Fareed, because we know you're watching this. People like Motzke and the non-Muslim Hadith scholars in general, you're saying, oh, he's using our method. Their method is more along the lines of the opposite of your method. See, you look at the story, Fareed, right? You look at the story, and the first thing you look at is, does this line up with Islamic theology? and you say, it does. Therefore, we can trust the story in that sense. We still have to check the names and see if it actually goes back to Muhammad. But the story lines up with Orthodox Islam. So you're looking, those are your criteria, right? Those are your main criteria. Does it line up with Orthodox Islam? And can you trace it back using this Isnad system? They do the exact opposite of what you do, right? When you say, let's see if this lines up with Orthodox Islam, you say that makes it stronger because it lines up with Orthodox Islam. They say, well, that's more likely to be fabricated, right? If you had something that was all weird, who's making that up, and what Muslims are going to be passing that on, right? So they look at it as stronger if it diverges from what you believe, because less likely to be fabricated and then passed on if people looked at that and they go, whoa, this is look at what this crazy person is saying, right? So that's one. Then you have the Isnad chain. You look at that and you say, he got it from him, he got it from him, he got it from him. I trust all these guys. Therefore, I say this is as good as gold. They look at that and they say, obviously fabricated, obviously. Why? The method hadn't been invented yet. So if the method hadn't been invented yet and you get this perfect Isnad chain, they go, okay, this is obviously a person after the methodology had been invented. And we say, here's what we do. We're looking for this perfect list of names and so on of all trustworthy guys. They look at that and they go, you obviously made that up after the methodology had been invented. Obviously, right? So you, Fareed, you look at a broken chain or a chain with unreliable transmitters and so on. You look at that and you say, that's weak. That can't be trusted. They look at that and say, that's more likely. They're not saying it's true, but they're saying it's more likely to be earlier. Why? If the methodology is sort of perfected at the time of Bukhari, then if you're making up a story after Bukhari and this becomes standard Islam, you're going to use that methodology. And if you're fabricating something, you're going to fabricate it with this great perfect chain. So when they see a broken chain or a chain, it's got unreliable narrators and so on, they look at that and say, well, the best explanation for that might be that it's before the methodology had been established. And therefore, it's probably earlier and therefore probably more reliable. So they're doing the exact opposite of what you're doing. Everything you do when you're examining examining a hadith, they're concluding the opposite and their way makes more sense. And then they conclude that your entire system is garbage. Because it's a later methodology, and if you throw that out and you say you can't trust it because it's a later methodology and you guys are obviously fabricating stuff and fabricating isnads and so on, okay, we can't trust that. They would conclude that hadiths that sound a bit unorthodox and that have broken chains, they probably are before the consolidation that happened with around the time of Bukhari in methodology. And therefore it's earlier, but still, how do you know that goes back to Muhammad? And so they don't trust the whole system, man. And you got to deal with that. But just pretending that, Monsky agrees with us. Come on, dude. Come on. All right, guys. We've covered it all. Let's take these last few super chats. Any thoughts on any of this? I didn't think so. Wow, this is where we're at. Muslims aren't fun anymore. How dare you? Yesterday, my opponent left the debate after I pointed out that the formed figure of Jibreel introduces the Holy Spirit as an individual being named Jibreel. The formed figure of Jibreel introduces the Holy Spirit as an individual being named Jibreel. Why would someone get offended at that? Looking forward to meeting you all at the Seek and Share conference. That's cool. We'll see you then. What are the Quran verses used for the Islamic dilemma? I keep forgetting. Keep up the good work, guys. Without lies, Islam dies. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. There's tons of them. The bare minimum, what you want it, 3 to 4, Surah 3, verses 3 to 4. That tells you that Allah sent down the Torah and the Gospel. 7:157 talks about Jews and Christians still reading the Torah and the Gospel. 543, that's where Allah commands Jews to judge by the Torah. 547, that's where Allah commands Christians to judge by the Gospel. 568, Allah says that Jews and Christians have no ground to stand upon unless we stand fast by the Torah, the Gospel, and all the revelation that has come to us. 1094, that's where Muhammad can only confirm his revelations by seeing if they line up with our revelations, which means that our revelations are the authority. And you've got a bunch of other really good ones too. 40 to 44. Definitely want 285. That's where Allah says that if we only believe in parts of our scripture and not all of it, then he will send us to hell. Very different from what Muslims are saying. But keep in mind, it's funny. We don't want to get into the Islamic dilemma. There's going to be plenty of that coming out, but it's the exact same thing we've been talking about, right? It's the exact same thing we've been talking about in terms of 20 years ago, we said Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. They all called us liars. We were telling the truth. They were lying. They said scientific miracles. We said bull. Turns out they were lying. All this other stuff, perfect preservation of the Quran. We were telling the truth. They were lying. And now Islamic dilemma. Now Islamic dilemma is kind of the new thing. Like, we're telling the truth. We're saying the Quran confirms the Bible. Oh, you're liars. We can't trust you. You kafar. Why wouldn't you trust us when we were telling the truth 100% of the time and you were lying 100% of the time? It's weird. Weird stuff. My proudest Christian moment this decade. Hatun pulls up to Speaker's Corner with multiple versions of this preserved book with no contradictions. I have to say, I believe that is what really led to the holes in the narrative interview. That kind of put the pressure on them to deal with this issue. Right. So before that, we would say things and they wouldn't believe us. It wasn't until it's actual Qurans in front of their faces, pointing to the differences in Arabic, that they're kind of forced to do something about this. And then all the people there who saw this, they all run to their dawah guys. Tell us, explain this, explain this, explain this. And they don't know how to explain it. First they lie. Oh, it's just differences in dialects. They lie. And eventually we're going to have to call in the big gun. We're going to have to call on Sheikh Yasir Qadhi to solve this mystery for us.
The funny thing about all of this is the arrogance, the narcissism of Muhammad Hijab, who is like, oh, no problem. I'm going to have a chat with Dr. Yasir Qadhi, and I am going to ask him some questions, and we will settle this case once and for all. I am going to handle this, no problem at all.
He wanted to be the hero. He wanted to be the hero who rescues the ummah.
He's such an idiot, man.
He is the worst tactician ever. Like, dumbest of the dumb. Not in every way. No, he's smart in certain ways, and like the way it's like Andrew Tate is smart. He's good at like manipulating people and so on. But as far as like, and Tate is a tactical moron as well. Like, oh, let me talk about all this sex trafficking I've done for years, and even make a course on it. Oh no! Now let me say I never did any of that. It's okay. You sound like an idiot to anyone who's not brainwashed. Let's see. Are we referring to the clowns who refute the existence of al-Zut? What? In the Hadith. Yeah. These guys would use their stupid Hadith methodology to deny the story of the men of al-Zut. That's why we cannot trust them.
Yeah.
And one thing we can agree on with Sheikh Yasir Qadhi is that all academics would agree that the story of al-Zut is authentic.
Absolutely.
100%. Under no circumstances record any of my Zoom calls. Hey, can we talk, Yasir Qadhi? Yasir Qadhi boomed the ummah. Hey, AP, Fareed's look is inspired by your avatar. That's messed up.
Oh, it's actually Osama bin Laden.
Yep.
He's inspired by Osama bin Laden.
He does seem to try to be pulling off an Osama bin Laden look. Fareed's comedy plus a Mike
He looks
Winger.
exactly like it. What are you talking about? He looks exactly like Osama bin Laden.
That's true. Does bear a striking resemblance. Fareed's comedy plus a Mike Winger voice changer would be good. Mike Winger. Top Dawah 2025, Care Depression and Lily J. That is the top of Dawah in 2025. We got Care Depression and we've got Lily J. Oh boy. And finally here we have D Wood. Are you surprised? Is it true that there are holes in the narrative? Yes, Lily J. D Wood, are you surprised in the slightest that this is happening? Most of the stuff, no. But there are particular things that you couldn't have predicted. Like, there's no way I could have predicted that Yasir Qadhi would just blast the Hadith out of nowhere. After that, you could predict what's going to happen, right? You could predict, Adnan Rashid, Fareed, Sajid, eventually, they're all going to like blast them and declare war and stuff like this. And then Yasir Qadhi is going to try and backtrack and get the Muslims back on his side. And then Yasir Qadhi is then going to, I'm attacking the Jews. I'm attacking the Jews. I'm attacking the Kuffar. So all that stuff, yeah, but some stuff is just pretty darn unpredictable. So yeah, most of the stuff, not surprised. Some particulars, surprising. And David, can you do a ministry update video once per month, including progress reports on your various projects you are a part of and spearheading? I always plan to. I have a screwed up way of doing things where I say, here's all the things I need to get done. And then there's the thing at the top of the list and then the second thing and so on. And progress report, it would kind of be like 9th on the list and it would just never get done. I understand I have a screwed up way of doing things. Like there should be a way like where I can actually like prioritize that occasionally or something like that. But anyway, yeah. So I have my system. My system is severely flawed. All right, guys, we've covered it all. My video is titled Sheikh Yasir Qadhi Destroys Hadith Methodology in 4 minutes. And we've spent the last few hours showing how. But these are good times, guys. These are good times.
Very good times.
All right. Final thoughts on everything before we close out. Any advice to any Muslims who might be watching?
I would say that it is simply very. It was a. So I want to say thanks to Yasir Qadhi. He has once again done everybody a very good service.
We love him.
I want to also point out here, of course, it is from our perspective, we can say he has done a great service and he will always be a favorite. I wouldn't say the favorite, but a favorite in our eyes in terms of how much he helps our cause.
He's one of our biggest helpers, yes.
Indeed. But I would also say that he also helps Muslims because with his perspective here in actually explaining to people that hadith science is something that you as Muslims can believe, but that other academics might not really accept, he might help make Muslims a little bit smarter and get out of this idiotic mindset of, Islam true, everything right, correct. So he might be helping out there a little bit. So for that, I also appreciate him. And I would say that people really should sit down and think about what Yasir Qadhi says here, because it's not just about the hadith. Especially Muslims should sit down and think about this a little bit. It's not just about the hadith. The uncertainty of the hadith in academia, also eventually calls into question the authenticity and reliability of the Quran and of Islam as a whole. And this is a big problem in Islam. People need to think about that very, very deeply.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, because AP said this earlier, but for anyone who tuned in late, when you talk, you've got this Muslim community that's cooking up stories left and right about Muhammad and sources of these revelations and so on. You can't trust that. Then you've got a serious issue. Because that's telling you how to understand the Quran. That's telling you where you got the Quran and all these things. You can't trust that stuff. You know next to nothing about the origin of your book. You know very little about how to understand your book. But also think about it. The same people who are preserving the Quran during this time, those are the same people who are just cooking up hadiths like they're cooking up falafel. In other words, you have the biggest bunch of liars the world has ever seen. They're the guys who are preserving your book, and you're telling us to trust this. And as far as AP mentioned, the book, the main version of the book that's spread, the Hafs Quran. Interesting tidbit to remember. You want to remember this. We brought it up numerous times, especially when Jaya and DOC are around. But Hafs if you see a hadith, Hafs, he's a transmitter of the main Quran that you have today, right? It's called the Hafs Quran. It's called the Hafs Quran. That is the main, vast majority of Muslims use the Hafs Quran. Hafs also transmitted hadiths. If you see a hadith that was transmitted by Hafs, it is instant da'if. They consider him weak. They consider him a liar. They consider him a thief. Everything negative you can say about someone who's transmitting a hadith, they say it about Hafs. And they say, if Hafs is transmitting a hadith, boom, instant weak, instant da'if. That's the guy who transmitted the main version of the Quran that Muslims use today. A guy who would not even meet the standards of a Sahih hadith.
It's pretty rude.
Pretty crazy religion you got. But keep in mind, your dawah guys don't want you thinking about any of this stuff. They want to keep you in a state of ignorance, and they lose their minds when people open the door for you to know about any of this stuff.
Which is why they even refuse to show David Wood's name when he talks about Yasir Qadhi. This is how pathetic it is.
And the Christian apologist who shall not be named has said, come on. Atun, any final thoughts or advice?
So you just made interesting point. While Yasir Qadhi is expressing that none of the hadith goes back to Muhammad, while he is expressing that historically every historians are not discrediting the hadith, all that, you are telling us somehow hadith is very important. A thief and a liar couldn't get into the hadith, but he give us the Quran. So hadith is more important than the Quran. And Sheikh Yasir Qadhi is telling us now, well, we cannot trust the hadith. That's according to historians. I find that's strange. The very book tells them how to live their life. Very book guide them how to follow Muhammad, to show how they follow Allah. Very book that they need to judge by it and live their life for it is not reliable. I think it is very good. Also, it is good to see, it was pointed out back, it is very good to see that even sheikhs and academics of Islam have double life. They live in hypocrisy. When they are meeting with people who has brain that they are asking question, oh yeah, so we shouldn't even mention those things because we don't know how to answer those questions. Let's use different methodology. But at mosque, they know those people don't look at anything. My sheikh said it, I'll take it. My mom said it, I'll take it. My imam said it, I'll take it and obey. They know those people are not going to check them. Therefore, they just show them different version of things and they lie to them. It's good to see sheikhs and scholars in Islam have two faces, and it is called hypocrisy and very, very dangerous. And overall, I don't know if I should say thank you to Yasir Qadhi, because I know Muslims are very much hating him this moment. I don't want to be
Thank you, Yasir Qadhi. You are our hero. We will always love you for the amazing work that you're doing. If there's a gift that you'd like, just name it. If we need to crowdfund it, we will do anything for Sheikh Yasir Qadhi.
I'm not sure if we will able to provide security for him. Probably he needs now.
Yasir Qadhi, I will gladly send you one of my Checkmate Jihadis shirt with Quran verses all over it in Arabic to protect you. It's all the security you'll ever need. Just tell me where to send it. I'll send you one. Totally free. It's on me.
That's very nice, man. Wow.
That's what I do.
Very
Wow.
generous of you. Very generous of you to share the word of Allah. For dear Muslims, I know you wanna listen what Farid is telling you. It's good to live in a comfortable life, but your comfortable life is based on lies according to your own scholars, according to your own dawah gangs. And that lie is not very good place. It is dark, it is lonely, and there is no hope there. Now you have no hadith, you have no Quran, I am afraid to tell you, you are going to burn in hell, and it's not going to be very nice. According to, well, I can't say burn because now we can't trust the Hadith. So I'll find something else for that statement. So your eternity is not doing well. All I can say is, while still your scholars are talking about these things, check what they are saying, and then run out of Islam. While you are breathing out and in, you need to run out of Islam. And I pray that you run into the arms of Lord Jesus Christ. You won't find any deceit in him. Our Lord doesn't go in mosques and then say something and then go to the academy and then say something else. His truth, there is nothing false found in him. Also, it's good that when Christians or critics of Islam stands up and then says, he is the holes in your story, he is the holes in Islam. As the time goes on, it's always good that Muslims kind of come and then say the same thing. It's good to know that as the time goes on, we will have Muslims are supporting what we are saying more. So in that sense, it is good as well. But overall, it was good to laugh what Farid was saying. There is something serious. Hadith is not reliable. Quran is not reliable. Islam is false. And you messed up if you are still following this ideology of Islam. So walk out of Islam and turn to the one who gave himself for you so that you can have eternal life with him, dear Muslims. I think that's all from me.
Yeah, so I just like to point out, as always, the hypocrisy. Hatun mentioned hypocrisy. But just think, when Muslims thought that some non-Muslim experts would agree with Islam, they shouted it from the rooftops. I'm talking about with the scientific miracles, right? Said, look, it's still in the dawah books. They still put this in here, even though it's been like completely exposed. There's a Wall Street Journal article about this scam, and they still use this information in their books for dawah. Back in the 80s, they had this brilliant little scheme. Saudi Arabia. It's partly some of it was funded by actual terrorists, but it was the scientific miracle. So they had this brilliant idea. They brought a bunch of scientists from various universities to Saudi Arabia. Everything was paid for. Take their wives and so on, or wives and their husbands. Bring them to Saudi Arabia, put them in the best hotels, shower them with money, gifts, everything, and then all of a sudden put them on stage and give them one little part of a hadith or something like that, or one little part of a Quran verse, not giving them the context or anything, and then say, "Isn't it amazing?" And most of them would say, "Yeah, I'd have to look into that, but no, that doesn't seem impressive at all." Some of them, just to be nice, would go, "Oh yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah, I don't know how Muhammad could have known that." And then they would just take the clips of the people who said something nice about the Quran. They compile it all and say, "You see, even Western scientists, when they're confronted with the Quran, they have to acknowledge that it's a scientific miracle. When they read Muhammad's statements in the Hadith, they have to acknowledge that it's a scientific miracle." People did interviews with these guys afterwards. That's what the Wall Street Journal did. They interviewed these scholars who were being used for dawah. Scientists were used, and they were telling the system. One of them said it's just mutual manipulation. They gave us free trips and free stuff, and all we had to do was say something nice about their religion. So we had no intention. We had no intention of like being used as being used for this. But what were we going to do? They're putting us in front of a bunch of nice Muslims after showering us with gifts and stuff. And those of us who said something nice about the Quran, they used it to say, "You see, this is true." But what are they doing? See, even the non-Muslims will grant that this is true. Okay, what happened to that? One, that was exposed. It was all deception. But now, Yasir Qadhi just said you can't find a single academic out there who will approve of your hadith methodology. And as AP pointed, that's foundational to your religion. You don't know anything about the Quran. You can't understand the Quran. You can't affirm the Quran without knowing about the hadith. And you have a screwed up system. So that's one hypocrisy. The other hypocrisy is, what do Muslims do when they're attacking the Bible? Oh, but poor Urban! One, Bart Ehrman believes that the New Testament is the best preserved book of the ancient world. So when you look at what he's actually saying, it's not helping you. But even if Bart Ehrman said that the New Testament's a complete joke, you would say, you see, the scholar says that your method is a joke and your book is a joke. Okay, well, he doesn't say that, but that's what scholars think about your hadith. And we're not supposed to care, right? Shame on them. We don't care about what they say. Wrong. You care when they agree with you. If they say anything that you could possibly agree with, you see the scholars. When they say something that completely undermines your religion, we don't care what the scholars say. They're morons. What is this religion, guys? Everything's lies. Every step of the way. Every argument you've ever been given for Islam is a lie. What does it take, Muslims, for you to realize you have a religion of lies? What does it take? What more do you need to see? I can't for the life of me understand what it would take. If I was talking to some guy and he tried to convince me of something and I catch him doing a lie, it's okay, you're going to have to do something to win back my trust, or I'm not trusting you again. If everything a guy has ever said has just been a lie, why would I keep trusting him? If that's what you guys do. No matter how many times your dawah guys lie to you, you go back to the exact same dawah guys and say, tell us a new lie. What is this religion? What is this religion? Seems demonic. Okay, everyone. Thanks to Hatun and AP for sitting through. No, this wasn't painful. This was fun. This was funny stuff.
That was good.
This was funny stuff. This is awesome stuff. All right, guys. So definitely want to share that Yasir Qadhi clip and definitely want to spread that around. Keep in mind, so the dawah guys are focusing on damage control right now. Some damage has just been done. And Yasir Qadhi isn't going to be able to repair the damage because we've heard it and we're going to share it. And other Muslims are going to realize, wait a minute, you mean academics think our entire historical method is a joke? We didn't hear that. We've never heard that before. Right. Once again, you have to come to non-Muslims to tell you the truth, with the sole exception of Yasir Qadhi occasionally being on truth serum for a few minutes and blurting out the truth and then having to correct him, spend the rest of his life trying to atone for what he has done. That should tell you everything you need to know about your religion. We'll catch y'all next time.